Thank you. I'd like to call to order the meeting, this joint meeting with the Select Board and the Charter Commission. Calling to order my Charter Commission. We have a quorum. Don, would you like to call the Select Board?
I would, and I consider it a joint meeting also. I'm calling the Select Board into order for this meeting.
Okay, just a quick, I thought we'd all, just to make sure, because we don't have nice shiny little nameplates. So for the public, Linda Sabula, Charter Commission.
Richard Waystack.
Anthony Wilson, Collinson, our advisor to the committee.
Herb Bell, Charter Commission.
John Chory, Charter Commission.
Sandy Hall, Charter Commission.
Brendan Lowney, Charter Commission.
Innocence and innocence.
Jennifer Mintz, Finance Director.
Jay McGrail, Town Administrator.
Jeff Handler, Select Board.
Mark Kelleher, Select Board.
Anita Dusek, Select Board.
Yeah, my sign is still correct. Select Board.
The Charter Commission, an independent, elected, and diverse commission, has been meeting since June of 2025. We have reviewed the existing charter line by line and will be proposing changes and additions to this charter. We have sought input from town agencies and from both our interim town administrator, Tony Schiavi, and from our current town administrator, Jay McGrail, and our Select Board. The Select Board is here tonight, which is great. We have received input, both written and oral, from Finance Committee, Water, Wastewater Commissioners, and Capital Outlay Committee, as well as from numerous residents and other town agencies. The Commission, as any other committee or commission, has established its rules and procedures. Through our discussions, we have reached consensus on a number of proposals. We have not held votes on individual proposals. Once we hold our informational session with the residents on June 18th, we expect to finalize our proposal for changes to the charter and then formally vote the proposed charter, revised charter as a whole. Procedurally, the proposed charter will go directly to a town ballot anticipated to be May 2027. The Commission is required to file a draft report with the Attorney General's Office and the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities in September 2026 and a final report in November 2026. Both reports will be available on our webpage on the town website. We are here tonight to hear from the members of the Select Board and welcome their input and comments. We hope to touch upon the following topics: a title change from town administrator to town manager, charter and bylaw compliance, legislation of a spring and a fall town meetings, codify the ability of the Select Board to remove an appointed committee member for not adhering to rules and regulations, process for the creation of a capital plan, and would we like to consider water, wastewater to be named water and sewer? They don't create wastewater. So,
They don't create water either.
that's true. Well, actually, they do. They bring it out of the ground. So, how would we like to proceed? And Anthony Wilson is our consultant. He is from the Collins Group from UMass, and he has been very valuable in providing us with information and some research.
Given the fact it's a joint meeting, I'd like to say something also.
I was about to say, would you
Okay.
like to say
At the top of the
something, Don?
meeting, I just want to make it clear that, as I've made it to Madam Chair, we have taken no votes either on anything. Anything that you've heard previously was individual board members opining on their own, and we still, as yet, don't have any, which is why we're here. We're looking for this to be a collaborative exchange at this point, since we've got something to actually look at. And I know that you folks have been hard at work, so I appreciate that.
And the charter, the red line of the charter has been on our website for 3 or 4 months.
4-9.
So anybody who is in town is certainly willing, please look at it, send us your comments, we'd be happy to have them.
Madam Chair, you want to start at the top then?
Well, we're here to hear from you.
Okay, well, we'll
I
take,
know that we've had both Jeff and Mark have come to our meetings,
Don's been there too.
and Don has been to our meetings. Anita, I think you came. So we're here to see what you have to say, things you would like us to consider, and et cetera.
I'd like to start with your stuff as a point of discussion so that we can go through what we have in front of us in order, and then what I view is that you don't know what you don't know if you don't know it. So we'll talk about things that you may not have captured here that some of the board members wish you had. So with that, I was going to focus on, I guess, Chapter 2, require a fall town meeting, which is the first bold change you were making, at least in the packet that
Yeah,
the public input
we
packet.
haven't voted, we have not,
Got that, but
we're discussing it. We haven't made a direction yet.
No, but I'm
Open item.
trying to use this as a map.
Sure, go ahead.
So this is what we got, so this is where I want to discuss it. So any of my members want to give an opinion, one way or the other, about requiring a fall town meeting? I believe that would be for the regulatory business and the,
What's being discussed at this point is the Springtown meeting basically be financial, not just financial, but effectively financial, the budgets, CPC articles. And that the Fall Town meeting would basically be non-financial items, the bylaw changes, et cetera.
got it. So, Jeff?
I'd like to listen a little bit to the colleagues, if you don't mind, and then maybe ask some questions before I chime in. I have some clarity things
Okay.
that I'd like to clear
Sure.
up.
Mark?
The only thing I would say is on the fall town meeting, excuse me, if it's required, I spoke to Emily Mitchell. She lowballed $20,000 to $30,000 for a fall meeting, perhaps up to $40,000 with clickers. And the idea of requiring a fall town meeting where we may not have that much on the agenda does not seem like a good idea. I think we have the ability now, correct me if I'm wrong, if we have a need for a fall meeting, we can call for one. So my only thought is a requirement for a fall meeting is maybe overstating it. I do think it's a great idea for zoning and bylaw changes because they're very confusing. You need education time. But even a limited amount of zoning and bylaw changes, a limited amount, could be handled at the annual town meeting. So the only thing I would say about the fall town meeting is I don't like the idea of required. So,
And that is what we're discussing in our committee, is requiring it, codifying it. Because of course, you do have the ability, the select board always has the ability to call special town meetings, fall town meetings, absolutely. But this, what we're discussing really is the legislation of that. Anita?
I would,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
We have to recognize our own members. Anita?
Thank you, thank you. I would agree with my colleague Mark here. A little bit of history for those that don't know the history of this. When the charter came into being in 1987, we had our elections on Monday. Town meeting started on Tuesday. And then if there were any override elections, it was in June. And that went through years. And then eventually it came that it was voted on to change, that we had town meeting the first Monday of May. The election would be the third Tuesday in May, and everything was done right in those 2 weeks, rather than to have an election, a town meeting, and another election, just on the overrides. That's just a little bit of history. For financially, it will cost the town some money to go into an annual fall town meeting. And if it's a special town meeting, then it would be, we could deal with the special, I think. But that would just be my opinion, just to keep it a special and not mandate it to be a annual fall.
Not ready yet?
I'm ready. If you'd like to go, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to go behind you.
I'll go after you.
Okay. And thank you all for being here, and Collins Center as well, thanks for being here. So my research has convinced me to not support this. And I'll give you my reasons to validate my conclusion. First off, I think the select board should be the sole arbiter of whether or not a town meeting in the fall needs to occur. I don't think it needs to be legislated. The town moderator does not feel like it's a good idea. I place an awful lot of weight on a 50-year veteran of town meetings. Obviously, there's a financial consideration, and I would have to say, I think 30 to 40,000, even with the clickers, is light. Not to mention the compression of time that it places upon our staff to get this accomplished. Free cash, regardless of whether or not our incredible finance director and town administrator think that they can get free cash certified. And if, I'm going to ask a question through you, Mr. Chair. If I'm not mistaken, your commission is discussing an October date? Is that what I
October-
remember?
We haven't really set on a date. We're dealing with the concept of it.
Okay. The date would make a difference to me. I still don't think, I would support it, but the date, I think, is important to know for a lot of reasons. You know, this year, our free cash was held up because the woman at the DOR was on maternity leave. So, you know, having the compression for staff, I think, is, at least that's what I was told.
I don't know that.
Yeah,
She
it
was,
was
she
before
was.
you.
Okay.
It was before you,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's multivariable as to could we get free cash? So that would truly prohibit, in my opinion, a financial, anything financial on town meeting floor. However, I would ask to have considered, because I've listened to your meetings and I hear your concerns and respect them, and I've spoken to Madam Chair about this the other day. Instead of legislating a fall town meeting, what I've heard from your commission is that the select board doesn't even consider it. They don't even talk about it. They're not preparing to even have a discussion. At least that's what I took away from hearing some of the narrative in your meetings. What about if we were to discuss in, putting in the charter, in October or November, the select board shall have on their agenda a discussion about a potential fall town meeting. That way, there is a discussion that is codified and legislated in the charter. It gives this commission the confidence that it will be discussed, and it might spur more discussion by the select board, or it might die on the vine in October or November, but at least it was talked about, and I think that would be a nice, happy medium. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I got a bunch of comments. I don't have any inalterable opposition to fall town meeting. We have had fall town meetings in the past. They haven't been mandated, but the real trick, in all deference to my colleague here, is if you're going to be talking about putting it on the agenda, you got to be backing up 45 days or you can't do it. So it's a structural problem. So you're really talking about it in August. Yeah. I do have a problem because I tried to pull this back this year to align with the actual operations of the town to develop a legitimate budget and a legitimate capital plan. To do that, the select board, I don't view taking every other meeting off any differently than I do trying to prepare for a fall town meeting. We really need to get disciplined on our finance side to be able to utilize the summer and the fall to get everything in order, to be able to formulate a budget earlier, like December, in January, to hit timelines for the Finance Committee to be able to analyze things. It makes no sense to me to give them something to hold a hearing on a week before we mail warrants out, because they're supposed to be partners. They're not supposed to be rubber stamping what we're doing. In addition to that, my major concern is we have a volatile population here. There's a lot of snowbirds. And you start talking October, November, even those 2 months are a completely different terrain. We had the infamous Headwaters wind turbines meeting in November, and when people came back, they were horrified that, oh my God, what'd you do? we need, if you're gonna have a fall town meeting, it better be populated in this, with the same enthusiasm, especially with zoning. Because I served on the planning board, I served on the select board, and I can tell you one thing. There's nothing I've encountered on the select board side that I didn't think it could be readily resolved by a different select board pretty quickly. When you make a mistake with zoning, you're looking at your mistake for 20 or 30 years. It really deserves the wider public's attention to make structural changes in what the zoning is. And we're gonna be looking at that in the near term for the whole zoning. So I'm a little concerned that you're not gonna have the same participation level that you would want. That doesn't mean I'm against it, but I think we're gonna have to account for that, and we're gonna have to account for doing two things at once, and there is some validity to the staff, because they have to prepare the warrant, and they have to get ready for the actual meeting, and it does have to go 45 days before the actual meeting occurs, and then there's the setup of the meeting, and then there's quadrennial presidential elections, which are gonna be in November, so smack dab in the middle of all that, the clerk's office is gonna have to be accountable for doing two things at once, both of them very important. So I don't know how you're gonna try to address those, but there's some fundamental problems that we have to get past if we're going to do it that way. And I do agree with you, it's probably a better idea if something has to be split off. It would be the regulatory things and the non-financial. But that is not true that you can't do anything financial in the fall because you don't have certified free cash. You sure as hell can. If we had a water tower that was falling down, we would hold an emergency special town meeting to be able to do something with it. And we have in the past done that kind of thing, where we have an emergent problem, we had to call a meeting to be able to address it, and it had money attached to it. So there absolutely is the potential for money articles, not necessarily related to establishing a budget, but something unanticipated that you may not want to wait until the spring. That's another reason why I'm not opposed to this, because there are those occasions where you say to yourself, geez, I wish we had a fall town meeting, because it's not easy to wait that long to get a decision. So I know this isn't all that helpful, but there are things that behind the headline I think you may want to address.
Appreciate the comments. I can say that I was on the finance committee when we had the turbines in November, and then we had the turbines in May. I was there, and yes, it was
Fun.
it was a hoop to do. I can say that this town meeting, I think that the public was given enough information to be better prepared for town meeting, and I think that's really kudos to Jay and his team. That I have heard so many comments about that newsletter. This is what each one is trying to do, the articles, to, cut through to see if the town will do such and thus, but cutting through the verbiage, this is what it's trying to do. I've heard so many great comments. I hope that can effectively be codified with the select board, that happen every year, because the comments that I have heard have been nothing but, this is great.
We not only anticipate that, that's why these two individuals are sitting here, and I would not sell Jen short either.
I said
Gave
in his
us-
team,
It's not his team, she's part of our team. She doesn't work directly right now for him. She needs to be able to get direct credit for it. She did a tremendous job analyzing our debt load and our projections going forward. The two of them working together collaboratively was a major difference in outcome for us. And you can expect that, at least to the extent I'm still sitting on a board, that I'll keep pitching that that's the way things should work, because it was very transparent, and it was possibly the most information we've received in years at a town meeting.
Richard?
I think Mr. Howell makes a great point in relative to a special town meeting being allowed to take any business before the town, not just regulatory, because there's been perception for many, many years by many boards that if there is a fall town meeting, it can only deal with zoning issues. And this came, to be honest with you, from the interim town administrator when he came to meet with the Charter Commission. He talked about a fall town meeting and having the ability to have the flexibility, as things occurred during the year, not waiting for another year for the town meeting. But I think if we do codify somewhere in there that a special town meeting can be called for any business to come before town and not strictly planning or zoning issues. And I think we should have it in there. Mr. Handler has a good point of having a discussion. But we have the opportunity to call a special town meeting now. but I want to make sure that we do codify that for any business to come before the town, rather than strictly planning and zoning. Your thoughts?
I'd agree, but come on.
Well, I would agree 100%, but if there's nothing in the charter that states otherwise, then it would be, anything goes.
Last comment, is, this commission has worked extremely well together. Yeah, this is our 45th meeting in the last year. And the goal was to create clarity within the charter, and to have some goalposts, guideposts there for us. And, literally allowing for everyone who's mentioned in this charter to do their job appropriately, and have a mechanism to do it. And there were so many things that were not clear, and we've heard it over the years. The charter says this, well, the charter doesn't say this, this attorney has one opinion, this attorney has another opinion. But making it as clear as possible for everyone. So, Mr. Handler, I appreciate your comments, that if there are things that are not clear, we need to get it into the charter, some way or another. So, your comments are all well accepted tonight, and we look forward to hearing more of them.
Can I say one thing? that
Just
is-
want to go back a little bit, with Anita's history, the Fall Town meeting was at one time codified. And it was set up so that the financial issues would be the primary focus of a spring town meeting. It did not say that you couldn't have other kinds of articles in it, and then the fall town meeting was geared towards the planning and other bylaw issues. And again, as I recall, and I don't have my little blue book from the original charter, I wanted to check back, but, so it's memory. But the, if financial issues were to come before a fall town meeting, then it would require the select board and the finance committee to agree that they should be there. So there was a little bit of a control, but not an absolute ban of any kind. And seriously, the thought behind it is that we've got so much going on these days, and it's gotten even more complicated. So the voters are sitting down in the spring, and they are having to go through all of it at one time, because if you aren't planning a fall town meeting for the zoning and the planning, then it's still going to be in the spring town meeting. Now, maybe this board would say, well, we would like to approach it that way, and we'll just do it because we'll do it. But this board isn't always going to be this board. So, as a practical matter, and I'd defer to Jay on this probably more because he's in the office, but it would seem to me to take a bit more of a load off the staff not to have to deal with all of it all at once. October seems like a good time because most of the snowbirds are still here in October, except for the every 4 years. I mean, that is an issue, but we've done that in the past, and it's managed. But I also think that splitting it up gives you a better chance to really educate the voters ahead of a lot of the zoning and bylaw stuff, and I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot more of that in the next few years. I mean, that's going to be huge. And it's a lot to absorb when you're trying to absorb whether to put a new roof on the middle school or, a half a dozen other, big financial issues, the capital outlay and all of that. So that's just the flip side of it and my viewpoint.
Yeah, partly it's to Richard and partly now to Sandy. You're right, Richard, about the ambiguity problems, but it's not too, it's tough to argue ambiguity when the word shall is used and people start debating what shall means. Specifically our own lawyers. So that's been a sore point with me for the longest time. Is shall, I don't know how, I don't know how you can.
It's going to be defined in the definitions to mean must.
Yeah, well, I would have assumed that under the actual English language.
Well, in the definitions we put in the charter, that's been the plan from the get-go, that it's
possibly the
shall
best change that you
equals
could make.
must.
Yes. Shall means must.
As for a town meeting, I agree with everything that's being said. The only problem that I anticipate also is to make sure that the public understands there's a different flavor to a fall town meeting. It's a special town meeting. The annual town meeting's in May. Somebody wants to put a petition in, completely different number of people have to sign for it. And if it has financial implications in the fall, that can be taken off by the Finance Committee. It can't be taken off in the Maytown meeting. I just want the public to understand the difference between these two. It's not as accessible in the fall. So limiting it to like zoning things would probably be helpful if that's what you can do. I mean, but Jeff's probably right too. There are things that happen that you may want to include in it. Just saying that the ground rules are somewhat different under Mass General Law.
Well, the point being, if the cause is just and urgent, the Finance Committee is unlikely to block it.
That's how I feel about it, but I'm just bringing it up, that they have that prerogative where they don't in the spring.
And we are, just to be clear, we are not talking codifying a Maytown meeting and a special in the fall. It is 2 town meetings. So a private citizen's petition would still be 10. But just to
I'm
clarify,
not
that
sure, I
that's
would
what
like
we've
to
been
see
talking
that
about.
tested.
That we would. Okay, next topic. How about we talk about the town administrator to town manager? We've had Anthony did a pretty extensive review of the title. And just so everybody knows, I know I've said this at many times at our charter commission meetings, there is no definition of town manager or town administrator in Mass General Law anywhere. And I've gone through all kinds of stuff. So it really is about the job description. Anthony, would you speak to the reason why we would think it should be a town manager?
I can just explain the reason that the committee did sign up. I'll
That's-
leave that to you.
Yeah, okay.
Anthony, when we move this to, I'm not sure how we take this. Sorry.
Sure, just to build on what the chair was saying. So, slight correction, there is a definition of town administrator in the Mass General Laws. Historically, that definition states that it really is you can think of it as a secretary and assistant to the select board, and really any authority that person exercises is delegated by the select board. Over time, many communities have given their town administrator more and more authority, where they have more responsibilities over town. However, the term town manager is, excuse me, not permitted, or the term does not exist in state law, so there is no standard definition. Many communities have used the term to emphasize that their chief administrative officer has more authority than what is granted or possible under state law, and those types of responsibilities that go beyond what the select board can inherently exercise are granted either through their charter or special act. So, one of the reasons, and I'll sort of defer to the committee, one of the reasons many communities like to use the term town manager is because it does convey to potential applicants for the position some of that authority that's beyond what people traditionally think about as an administrator, and so in many ways it can be more attractive as you're looking to fill that position, as it becomes vacant at various points in time. But I'll turn that back to the committee.
Jeff?
I don't have an opinion on it one way or the other. I believe I would support whatever the commission would have put forward. My only question that I had written down was what in fact would change in the charter, if I'm hearing from the consultant, that the select board gives authority to the town administrator, but more authority can be given to the town manager absent the select board's authority through the charter. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, let me correct that. So, and I think the issue is with my explanation. So,
No, it's definitely how I heard it. No doubt.
So historically, there's a universe of responsibilities that town administrators could have, again, that are delegated or sourced in the responsibilities of the select board. Over town, many communities through special act or charter have given their town administrators and town managers more authority than the select board inherently has. So there are some communities around the state where their town administrator has more responsibility than the town manager in some other communities. So I think what I'm trying to convey is that the terms are used in some ways interchangeably. They don't inherently describe the authority of that person. It's that position is, the authority in that position is described in the duties in the charter or the special act that creates it. However, you can only call it a town manager usually through the use of your charter or special act.
I see. Thank you for that.
And Mr., if I can, Mr. Handler, you asked what would change in the charter? The name. That's it. Administrator becomes manager, that's the change.
The title change.
Mark?
I think as we approach a $100 million a year budget in a few years, and I think the intent of the commission is to have the select board concentrate more on policy and things like that. I think that the term town manager is more explicitly defines the role of what the town manager does. He's running things, basically. We're giving him direction. And to run things, you need the management. That term, I think, connotes the power to actually manage things. So that's my feeling, town manager.
Okay. I would 100% agree. I believe we're at that point now where the budgets are getting larger in financial implementations, and I believe that we need to change the title now from administrator to town manager, because that's, anyway, I think that would be the proper thing to do at this point in time.
Playing musical chairs here.
I was trying to,
I may be the outlier here. As a practical thought, and I got to be careful about this, given the former town administrator's departure language, that over the course of prior administrations, it is demonstrated to me, number one, there are different flavors of manager on Cape Cod. They're not all the same. Some of them even appoint committee members for volunteer committees. Others don't. What is policy and what is not policy is a conundrum in itself. I personally have strong feelings about not conveying even regulatory decisions onto an appointed body, because it's one more veil between the public and the people they elect. I've said this to you guys before. It's not easy to move on from a town administrator, even if they're not doing what you want them to do. So one of the things that I caution everybody about, there is a vast difference between defining the role of what is going on and how well somebody occupies that role. I mean, that's been a problem for us through the years. But the bottom line here is, talking to the public again, I'm not sure that this wouldn't be an unforced error on our parts by putting manager in there, because it has a bad connotation to people in this particular town about how much authority was conveyed to somebody they thought already had too much authority or was exercising too much authority. The reality is, it's all about what the function list is. It's not about the title. So I could see it being codified as manager, but I warn everybody that if it means something to the public in terms of motivating them to vote for or against it, that shouldn't be your major issue. I wouldn't die on that hill particularly, because it's not going to make a difference. Ultimately, it really gets down to the details. What are you conveying to the town administrator or the town manager that they're authorized to do, and what is it that the select board has to do, is really what you need to delineate. So whatever you guys decide on, that's fine, but I do want you to know that there's a pothole coming up on the road that you're driving. That there's some people that are really antsy about the name manager.
Understood, and I think one of the things that this commission, this group, we have been really concerned about is clarity, taking the wiggle room out of things, putting in the definitions that shall means gotta. It's not interpretive, it's gotta. And I think the other thing is, we've been proponents of, as Richard likes to say, do your job. And that we're trying to make sure that whatever is in the charter is a do-your-job thing, so that, and quite frankly, Dawn, if, whether we call it town manager, town administrator, chief pooper scooper, the supervision and review and direction to that person is the select board. So there's the do-your-job part, and, which is why is one of the things we are proposing is codifying that there has to be a performance review done by April 30th of every year by the select board for the town manager, town administrator, before the board potentially changes over. So we're kind of going on both those. I mean, we've also said, who's the throat to choke on things? If something isn't getting done, we all are going to turn to Jay and say, why not? Fix this. So that's yep, he's waving, yep, that's me.
That's it. Although, there is a problem that's at least an initial implementation problem that you have to recognize. You can do whatever the heck you want, but there's a contractual arrangement
Yes, there is,
currently
yeah.
with, and it would require a contractual change to codify that there will be a performance review, because there was at least one recent town administrator who objected that his contract didn't call for that, so no matter what we decided, he wasn't going to do it.
And I hope you put it in this one.
Well,
Mr. Chair, could I jump in for 1 second?
sure.
So, you know, I just for my 2 cents, obviously it relates to my job, and I was just attracted to this community by the job, so I think it, you know, the consultant, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Anthony Wilson.
Anthony, you know, really, I thought, defined the situation well. And honestly, I really don't have a dog in the hunt either. I kind of told the committee, or the commission last week, and I've told the select board the same thing. Administrator, manager, you know, it doesn't, I work, as Dawn said, I work for the people outside the window. You know, he keeps telling me that, and that's what makes sense to me, you know, gotta make sure I do what keeps everybody happy. But, you know, it is very strange, the difference between manager and administrator as it relates in Massachusetts. I was a town manager under a strong town manager charter, what was considered a strong town manager charter in Middleborough, and I have more appointed authority under this current charter today than I did 3 months ago in Middleborough. So, you know, if you read the Middleborough Town Charter, it was one of the first charters, a town manager charter that was set up in 1920. It's clear that I have more appointed authority here than I did 3 months ago. So that's strange, and our consultant, Anthony, said that directly. But I can say, to your point, to his point, you know, to another further point that he made, when trying to attract a candidate, now no one's gonna come or not come because of the title, but I did think like, I liked the town manager title, you know, and I'm giving that up to come to the administrator. So I did like think about it a couple times in my head. Now, I never would have ultimately said yes or no, depending on that, but it did go through my mind, you know, so. Anthony's points were really, really well. I think that kind of defines it. It is just a title. And I think Dawn's point is the best. Don't let the whole thing either go up or down based on this one
Well,
point.
that's why this is gonna
Yeah.
be one of the topics that we're gonna ask the community at the June 18th meeting.
Yep.
It's also interesting to your point about the job, it's the job description.
Correct.
Because there's a community north of Boston that is also in a regional school district. And I spoke to both people who were the chief executive officers of their community, not the select board, but running the town. One was town administrator, one was a town manager. Their job descriptions were virtually identical. So it's really, we're looking at it as a convey that this person is in charge. Now, one of the things we're also trying to deal with is to not put things in the charter or not in the charter based on prior personalities. We're trying really hard not to do that. And we've had a lot of discussions about that, Don. So we recognize the personality issues, because no matter how many rules you have, you still have people doing the job.
But I will point out to you, if you keep getting run over at the same intersection each week that you cross it, then you might want to consider going to a different place.
Yep.
I get what you're saying, but if it happens with normality and frequently, which it has been, and because I've been a selectman this is going on my 16th year, last 26th, and I've seen different people occupy the same exact job description in completely different ways. And all I was talking about wasn't even that. All I'm talking about is you define what the things are, which you are. How does the public perceive that title change? That's the top line comment I'm making is, if it's poisonous in a discussion, and you're gonna find that out when you do the public stuff, then I wouldn't die on that hill just for the name.
There are lots of things we don't want to die that hill on, and I think you bring up a good point, and I go back to Mr. Handler's question. What's the difference in the charter by going from administrator to manager? One word. The name administrator to manager. There's no change in the charter otherwise. It's incumbent upon the charter commission to work with the select board and the community to educate what the changes in this charter are, why they're being done, and I need to echo Linda's comment. This is a charter we're looking for the future. We can't look behind. We can learn from what's happened in the past, but we need to plan a charter that we can live with moving forward. Because you folks are running the town right now, you know, as our chief executive officers, so to speak, and that'll change in 3 years, in 6 years, in 9 years, but the charter will remain the same. So we have to do a very, very good job of educating at our June 18th, Mr. Lowney's meeting on the 18th, which he's setting up, and then having good discussions with the public, hearing the folks here tonight have been before us in the past. It allows us, again, to bring that input, and if there are questions, that was a great question, Mr. Handler, you know, what's the impact of doing this? And so, good point, we will make it a point to educate very, very well some of these changes, so we don't have to die on the hill in one word.
I think we're done.
Another easy one. What do we think about, we've heard from the Water Wastewater Commission, they're kind of split on becoming water sewer versus water wastewater. Is what they do, because the select board, you know, by your votes, and in the charter, you're responsible for the wastewater plan and getting stuff, sewering done and getting it all implemented, that's your job, and that's fine. What do you think about the water, wastewater, water sewer?
Well,
An opinion?
From my perspective, that's another one of those differences without any real difference. The water, wastewater, I get it, but it's easy enough to explain. We design them, we install them, they run them. So they don't get to put pipes in wherever they want to, they don't get to design them, but they do have to operate them. And what they're operating is a wastewater facility or a conveyance to wastewater. So you can call it whatever you want to. I've had people go, ooh, to me, over the use of the word sewering.
I know.
I mean, so I don't know why, but there seems to be a real negative connotation. Everybody's house has one pipe that comes in and there's another pipe that goes out. So whatever they want to call it is fine with me, except that they have jurisdiction over operating both sets of pipes, ultimately. That's what it boils down to.
And I'm not questioning that at all, because I think.
No, I know you're not. I'm just pointing out to you that you could change the name, but it's still going to be the same function. We
The
build
same
them
function.
with the sewer authority, but that doesn't make us the wastewater operator.
Anybody else on?
Water, sewer, wastewater? Sounds like it's
I'll-
right up there with town administrator, town manager.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I think the department handles water and sewer. That's where I see it landing. I don't see wastewater needing to be in the title. But again, not gonna call you up tomorrow, Linda, and give you an earful about it, so,
Oh, thank God.
yeah, however you all feel, but I think water and sewer is what they do.
Just a question again, what did the Water and Wastewater Commission prefer for a name?
Kind of split. Some of them are on the side of, they feel that wastewater is, hopefully I'm not making calls from them either for paraphrasing them, but that wastewater is a larger title, that it's also the ponds, and it's this, and it's more encompassing. And yet the people who are saying it should be the sewers, is they don't have anything to do with cleaning a pond. They don't have anything to do with all of that. It's, cleaning of the water and turning it into water, clean water that can be then put back on the ground into the aquifer. So they're kind of split. That's why we're looking to see from the community what they think.
I think wastewater is a more common term. Dennis is building a plant.
Yeah?
Is that the name of that plant, the wastewater plant, or is it the sewer plant?
I bet you $1 from donuts, it's not called a wastewater plant. I bet you to more
There you
further
go.
complicate things, they call it a WPCF, a water pollution control facility.
Okay.
That's the new phrase.
That's too wordy because
That's too wordy.
because there's communities where sewer is really taboo, wastewater is taboo, so now they call it water pollution control.
There you go.
That's what we call it in my house.
Got a different term for it.
So my guess
Haven't
is
been
they
to my
call it a
house.
WPCF if they're building it new right now.
There you go. WTF.
I guess it really wouldn't matter to me one way or the other, but for me, rolling off the tongue, I would think water, wastewater would be probably a little, it encompasses probably a lot more. When you think of just sewer, you just think of one certain thing, so I would just think water, wastewater, but,
That's what water was. Water is one thing.
yeah.
Don, an opinion?
Actually, no, but I'm gonna throw more mud at everything
Oh,
as
thank you.
usual. We are getting into a completely gray area, and I hate to use that word, where it's a treated water.
We're talking gray water now. Okay.
But truly, alternative systems are starting to be allowed by the state to,
Yes.
who do we anticipate actually having jurisdiction over assessing compliance for those then? If they're not wastewater, because they're not sewers.
Board of Health, I guess.
Yeah, well, what's the Board of Health's budget right now for inspections? So,
That's your issue.
That's
yeah,
your
but
issue.
one has an
Have to be
enterprise
approved by the
fund that's
plumbing.
captured by use, the other one doesn't.
Mhm.
So, all I'm saying is, there's an interloper coming up that doesn't fit into either of these boxes well, so if you go to sewer, alternative systems aren't counted in that.
Well, it sounds like a topic for the select board to take up at some point, to be, thinking of the future, that rather than have it dump on us, literally, actually have a plan
I
of
think we're
attack.
getting into dangerous metaphoric
Yes, sir.
territory here.
Okay,
Are we having fun yet?
one of the things that Jeff came to us with and suggested with the recent number of committee, commission, board members who hadn't gotten sworn in, hadn't done this, hadn't done that, and the select board, removed them from their positions. And Jeff suggested that we codify into the charter your ability to do that. That if somebody is not following set procedures, rules, whether it's Mass General Law, charter, bylaw, whatever, that you get the right to remove them, because that's the cause.
One of the last things that I hope to accomplish before I relinquish being chair is using the idea, which doesn't require a charter change, of a provisional appointment, that you must do the following within 30 days or the appointment itself is revoked. So they're not actually serving at that point, so the charter doesn't govern it. If we were to give an appointment that says, in the next 30 days, you have to be sworn in by the town clerk, and you have an obligation to take the state ethics test. If you do not accomplish these within 30 days, basically the appointment evaporates. But I'll say that
I
the
like
difference between what you're talking about and what I'm talking about is, you'd have to be sitting on it first in order to be removed. And I would prefer not to have the problem at all. It's been a compliance problem on our part that we haven't been able to get our arms around. The easiest way to do it is say that it's provisional. It doesn't get executed unless you do the following two things.
Maybe the part is, you're not gonna get sworn in by the town clerk until you can submit that certificate that you've been through the,
But there's the conundrum. You have to be sworn in to be a member in order to gain access to the portal to be
Good
able to take the ethics test. So if you
That's a-
have no position, you're not taking the ethics test.
that's an interesting comment.
Does it deal with the issue of if a removal is necessary? In another instance, we had in the last 3 years, some instances where people were removed. I think that's a great point that you're doing. I think it's wonderful. Hopefully you see that implemented. But if there is a cause for removal, do you need that codified in any way?
I think you should, because I have been reading into this, but I feel very uncomfortable reading into essentially the Constitution, what I would like it to say. Mal, miss, and nonfeasance don't exist in this thing. If you were to even just put that in, that for the following reasons could be cause for removal. But that also implies some sort of style process where you just don't say, you're out of here. I don't like you, Linda. I want you off that committee because you're not voting the way I would have wanted you to. Especially the regulatory committees, that's a real slippery slope. I would prefer to go into actual non-feasance. You're not showing up, or misfeasance, where you're taking money to do something, or malfeasance, where you're deliberately trying to stop the committee from operating.
It's a great point. Love to see some language.
Yeah,
Mal,
I was
Mal,
gonna
miss,
say,
and non
Well,
is
this-
my language.
And the thing is, we can also address the code of conduct that the town has.
Yeah.
But I think just hearing you feel that there should be something in addition to what you're talking about for removal.
Yes, although, again, I'm fossilized. I've been around a long time. Well, not as long as Sandy, but
Ooh, wow. Hey, wait.
Shots fired.
Hey,
All
no
right,
taking shots at our
children.
commission.
children,
but in my experience, the problem
I don't
is,
even get to
depending-
defend
and you
myself.
pointed this out, every 3 years, you have the potential of a completely different town, or at least in part. And I have seen people who are not happy campers occupy seats up here. And my other concern is, how do you recruit in an environment where people feel like we're just waiting for you to take one misstep and then we're gonna hammer you? So I have always gone on the side, let them lapse out unless something truly egregious happens or they're not showing up. But that's something you folks are gonna have to decide where that line is. I personally can see this being weaponized in the wrong hands if you don't make it clear enough that you gotta do something wrong, and it's not just that we don't like you anymore.
well, I think that, I think that that is true. I would say that the provisional appointment, for example, you could have someone sitting on a board, and every year we're supposed to acknowledge that we received the certain information from the state. You have to click on and read it. If
And
you
that
have
is a
someone
problem.
who is already sitting on a board and refuses to do it in years 2
But that's
and 3,
nonfeasance.
that's malfeasance, and you should be able to remove them for not adhering to rules and regulations.
Yeah, but again, that's why I would like to see codified mal, non, and miss, because that's really what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're subject to capricious attitudes. We don't get along well with you, so I don't want you on a committee anymore.
One would, we'd have to think about how one would define malfeasance, because for
That
one
would be
person, it's up
nonfeasance.
here.
It's a lack of action.
But we
Mal
have
would
to-
be bad
you've gotta-
actions.
We need to define it clearly.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't be subject to numerous reinterpretations, which is what we're trying to avoid.
That's my entire
Anthony
answer.
mentioned
It-
that there is language there that they can use from the state.
Cool.
Well, yeah, I would, again, all of these are the committee and the community's decisions. I actually would caution against sort of defining things like malfeasance and misdemeanor and putting a lot of process in the charter, just because it can be complicated for the town to enforce and implement those things. What are common things that you'll see in charters are, number one, I think where you started, which is the select board's ability to remove individuals, particularly from volunteer appointed boards. When we start talking about the boards appointing that are under state statute, for example, here you have an elected planning board, but some communities have appointed planning
No,
boards.
what's
We have an
appointed?
appointed.
Oh, you're
We're
appointed.
appointed.
So many communities have the appointed planning board, so they've got some protections that would sort of be beyond the charter. But for your other appointed volunteer boards, the charter could have some language around the select board's ability to remove individuals. And then to the most recent point, a lot of more modern charters are having language that says that if any town official is convicted of a felony, that's the level that the seat is automatically vacated. And so that's where you can get to some of the malfeasance and misfeasance. And oftentimes it can be any felony, even if it's unrelated to their official capacity. So those are some of the areas that most.
Maybe the answer is to removal, that the select board has the authority to remove for cause.
That's why we.
And
just-
leave it at that. If you start defining
No.
what cause is, then
That's what we
you're
want
right.
to avoid, Don, is we want to avoid a word that is not then therefore clearly defined. What's cause? Which is why we're leaning more in the direction of adhering to rules and regulation, because those exist and they're clearly defined. If you start saying for cause, it's not defined,
I
unless you
guess
want to
this is
define
my
cause.
bias from my education background, is that
Yep.
the Soviet Constitution was this thick. It defined everything, including your right to have a pencil and a pad to redress your grievances. Our Constitution was a lot more succinct. But in most constitutions, less is more. The more you put in, the more you have to define what the hell it means and defend it. That's why I was saying, you may just want to say remove for cause, because my experience with people is if there's a real cause, they're not going to go through the whole process of having to be brought in front of the select board and go into an executive session or something. In practice, that's not going to happen.
One of the things we do want to look at too is items in the charter that don't cause the town liability. You know, for cause, someone says, well, that wasn't cause, and we're gonna sue the town because they let me go for cause, and there was no definition of cause. So we're gonna be careful. I think, obviously, this is gonna be vetted by both, council and the attorney general, but we need to get the advice necessary. We need to do some work. We need to do more work. And, we'll be happy to have.
But right now, we have absolutely no mechanism at all. We're-
Correct,
We're
and that's
bluffing. We're
correct.
bluffing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we believe there should be something in there.
Okay.
And based on the input that you've received.
Yeah.
Brenda?
And based on the conversation, it could be as simple as just adding one word. So in powers of appointment, the select board shall have the power to appoint and remove members. And that's what it says above that as well, pertaining towards, the fire chief, police chief, and town manager. I know it's committees, but that's the word we just want to put in there. As far as everything else, the emails are with the clerk, the state ethics is with the state. I don't think you need to define what the cause could be at all.
But if you're talking about retribution, that's a real big exposure right there, because the
Well-
regulatory bodies, if I were removed under those circumstances, I'd call it retaliatory.
That's the issue we want to avoid. And now you can see what we're doing in our work,
Yeah.
when we sit and have our discussions. It's a good discussion to have. We need to clarify it, we need to vet it, we need to get vetted through council and with our consultant.
Anthony, would you be willing to give us some words as to how we could put that into a couple of sentences?
Yes, and
That
there's,
would be clear.
yeah, and I just wanted, just one FYI for just the room, and I just make sure that I understand. Again, we're talking about appointed committees, these are
Appointed.
volunteers,
Correct.
so they don't have the same protections as employees.
Right.
They're special
it-
town employees.
Yeah, and so, then the other, so that's one of the reasons why you want to be careful about adding process. You oftentimes don't want to give people the protection of paid employees when you don't necessarily have to, because that puts more of a burden on the administration in the town. So you could, but that's not something we generally recommend.
Yep.
And
But
you
again,
also-
the regulatory bodies enjoy a completely different level of autonomy. And if you start removing them, and people start, because they are special town employees, whatever you want to say about what's explicitly in writing here, doesn't matter. The state recognizes them as having certain protections. And if you start doing this often, especially to certain boards, it's going to look retaliatory. We supply the people for the board, but we have no right to tell them how to vote. And this could be a backdoor methodology to do that, so we got to be really careful about how this is laid out. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to know why Linda looked at me when felony was brought up. You didn't look at Martha, you
No,
looked
no.
straight across,
That
smiled,
was
and...
very clear.
Okay.
And I didn't look at Jenny, I was
So,
looking at you.
just a couple of questions, and I would like to drill down on the word process, as Anthony's made it very clear. So my first question or thing to consider would be, how does our employee handbook intersect with our charter? The employee handbook, which I'm in the process of overhauling, as you know, we've talked about that a couple months ago. I'd like to understand how that intersects with charter language, and maybe we
I
can,
mean, the committee handbook.
The committee handbook, yes, the committee handbook.
You're rewriting my
Yes.
committee
I
handbook?
was just gonna
Absolutely.
say that.
Absolutely. We'll,
I said it was written in stone, but they wouldn't listen.
well, now that I know you wrote it, I'm gonna have to look at it a little more closely. Okay, so, we do have, at least in my mind, Anthony, I'm gonna direct this to you, we do have what I consider to be a process for committee members who are flying in the face of proper procedure and protocol. I go back to when I first became a board member. We had a golf committee that one of the committee members was trying to audit the town of Harwich. The other was trying to tell, the department heads how to run the show. Multiple warnings over multiple years were given, and the process we followed was in place. So I go back to language now that you're gonna put in the charter. Should there be at least a I call it a minimal process? So for example, select board identifies and refers to the interview committee, said person. The interview committee interviews and holds a kind of like a information gathering session. If the committee, interview committee feels like it should be brought to the select board for greater discussion, it would then get put on an agenda, and then to Don's point, 5 people would have to weigh in, and maybe you could make it a supermajority to remove, to create the backstop that I hear you're looking for, and I fully respect. But I believe there needs to be at least a basic process of what this board, select board, would follow, dealing with any committee member, whether it be regulatory or advisory.
And that's one reason I brought this up. He and I have a fundamental disagreement about what happened with the golf committee. Fundamental. The problem is, there's nothing in the charter whatsoever about any of this. And for instance, if you have a named, I don't care whether it's in the bylaw or in the charter, if you have a named committee, can you say that you can't meet? All of these things haven't been resolved. We did what we did, and we are where we are. I'm not sure that it was 100% unanimity. It would be real helpful to have some guardrails out there to say, you can do this, but you can't do that. So that's up to you guys to be able to carve that out. But again, those are some of the issues, because I don't know that we have the authority to tell a committee that's named in the charter that they can't meet.
Sorry.
That's a problem too, and I'm not gonna relitigate that.
No. I'm in agreement with you, and differences aside, we had no playbook.
I know. And
That's the point.
That's what I'm saying, is I'm not disagreeing with, I'm not saying he shouldn't have done that. I'm saying it's just as reasonable that that happened as something else happened, and it should be in writing about how we do things like this, because they're delicate areas.
Well, some of that has to be a policy decision on the part of the select board, and when you're talking about just the basic appointment of somebody being not effective or contingent upon, when you write the appointment letter, those points should be made clear in your appointment letters,
gonna
that
be part
this
of the
will only
process.
become effective upon being sworn in by the town clerk and completion of, and maybe go further and say 4 consecutive meetings without cause or without excuse will result in the revocation of your appointment. Make it a
That
little,
morphed too. I mean, originally, the intent of the attendance part of that
Still in the.
wasn't, yeah, but it wasn't supposed to reset, and then I could miss 2 meetings, and then I could come back and have a meeting, and then I could miss 2 or 3 meetings.
Well, there's
again.
language about 65% or 70% of all the meetings. That's in there.
I get that, but I'm not sure every chair is actually
No one follows it. No one,
time clock.
Your job.
well, sure.
Your job.
you have to have chairmen who are willing to step forward and say, I have a problem with a committee member. And maybe it's training. I mean, I think a lot of what you run into with problems with boards and committees is lack of training. And
And
it's
that
not
isn't-
enough to hand them a committee handbook and say, here, go read this. You
That's
need to
another
bring them
going-away
into a
precedent
room
that
and
we're
you
trying
need to
do,
have
is
that
train them
conversation.
So that they understand their responsibilities, and also how to post, and what their obligations under state law are.
What an
We
agenda
haven't
should
really
look
done
like.
our part, so I get what you're saying, and that is something that we're gonna be doing more of.
Yeah, education is key to all of this. You can't expect people to guess.
I would be on the, I'm not sure putting into the charter, first you do this, then you,
No.
because the charter is this roadmap.
Mm.
Each committee, board committee, commission should set policies on how it's going to run itself. I would think that that would be I think the select board needs to be looking at how you put that in the committee handbook. Because again, if you go back to remove somebody for not adhering to rules and regulations, well, one thing is the committee handbook is a set of regulations. So, and none of this, and it's remove appointed, because somebody who's elected, there's already all the routine where you go collect signatures, and you have a recall. That's a whole different, for elected people, that's totally different. And this certainly isn't going against, with employees, because that's also has union contracts and all kinds of other things. This is specifically for those volunteer appointed people. Brendan?
I think the process is already there. The roadblock is not having the word removed in there. If that's in the charter, then you can find your way to the process, whether it's complying with the handbook, not having maybe the email falls into the handbook, you have to have your email, the state ethics, all of that, those three items. And then, to your point, it falls to the chair to manage their committee as well. So I think if we put the word remove in, you're gonna give a pathway to a process.
And I think that's, to Sandy's point, there's an education process. When I first came on a committee, there wasn't even a committee, I think that there wasn't even a committee handbook. So you didn't have anywhere to go for guidance when I first came on a committee, 20-plus years ago. So I think having actually that committee handbook came from the desire of the existing board, which I was on, to have something that people could say, how do you do stuff? What are the rules? How do you do stuff? And I think that something that ought to be considered by the board is, the select board, is having we're all supposed to reorganize our chairs on committees in June, basically in June.
First meeting after the fiscal
First
year
meeting After the
starts.
fiscal year
First week
starts,
of
so
July.
basically,
July.
usually
First
June,
meeting after
July.
No,
July
July.
Could be June,
No, July.
July.
all right.
Fiscal year ends June 30th.
June 30th, July. I think that maybe there is a potential for an August training session for new board chairs and existing board chairs, so they can find out what they're not doing right.
Madam Chair, can I
Go ahead.
get us back on
Sure.
track? Great discussion of policy. We hear what you're saying. You want remove in there, we'll work on that. What's next?
I'd like to talk about capital outlay.
Capital outlay.
That's super important, has to do with money and process.
Let's open.
Floor's open.
I'd love to hear from you first.
We're still working on it.
Mhm.
Right.
I know that there's people that are fierce advocates on both sides of this. The idea of creating a 5 or 7 year, doesn't matter which you're talking about, capital plan was always to clear up planning. It wasn't a tool just for the government to plan. It was also to allow the population of taxpayers to understand what their future obligations were going to be, because it was a roadmap to give them some assurance that what their obligations were now and coming up. Now, we're trying to address, and we have been addressing, and I thought that was the comment I was making about Jen, what you're already on the hook for, which a lot of people have not known. They open up their tax bill and it's like, what did you guys do? Well, you voted 2 years ago at town meeting to fund a project that was just borrowed. So now you raised your taxes, but that doesn't account for the future. The goal always had been, at least for the 35 years I've been looking at it, and I know Sandy's got some thoughts on it herself, to create as straight a line as possible. Things drop off, things come on, things drop off. Now, the whole sewer conundrum has blown that up to a certain extent. But it's still incumbent upon us that things should be done in a way where it's not haphazard, where the first year is always completely new every year you do it. Because that's where we got to. It was a capital budget, it wasn't a capital plan at all. When we did, just as an object example, Brooks Academy waited a couple of times because it wasn't, Brooks Library, it wasn't ready. And because it wasn't ready, it got kicked off year one and put into year two to come back. The town meeting has the authority to change years anyway. So if anybody's frightened about this, I have never, in my history of town meeting here, ever seen a town meeting turn down an urgent need because, no, that's on year three, and it's, we're in year one right now, so we're not gonna do it. There's a mechanism. You get a 2/3 vote, and you can be sure that everybody wants to move the thing on a plan, but it has to be a planning document that's not only durable for the town's forecasting, but for the citizenry to understand what their tax liability is going to be, at least stated. Clearly, by the time you get to year three, maybe four, and certainly five, it's not set in stone. And I know one of the things everybody concerns themselves with is the magnitude. Well, what if I say it's $1 million and it's really 1.4 million when we talk? It doesn't matter. It's the project, not the cost of it. The cost gets plugged in when you're actually discussing it. So what I'm saying is there needs to be the stability of this actually being some sort of root structure. If you put together a 5-year plan, but every year it doesn't wind up becoming year two, becoming year one, then it's not a plan at all. There's no assuredness to anybody that you're gonna be following any kind of coherent plan. FUD.
We're here to listen to you.
We're here to listen to you.
What I would say on the capital plan is, and I'd be interested, Anthony, because you deal with other towns, is you need to build in flexibility in contingencies. Because generally you're dealing with construction projects or equipment, and sometimes you can't anticipate the need. For example, this year there was the Harbor Master's boat. Now, I objected to it because it didn't follow the existing plan. And I said that the harbor master, if the boat was defective, he would have brought it up. But say like this January, they found they had a cracked hull. You need to have the flexibility to put that order in and not even wait, perhaps, for town meeting, just because you have public safety issues. So I'd be interested in what other towns do, but I just want to caution, when you're dealing with a 5-year projection, you need to have flexibility to handle contingencies. Now, sometimes that generally can wait till an annual town meeting, but again, that may not work. You may have a need for something right away. And when we have a $100 million operating budget, that's the only thing I would say. I'd be interested to see what changes. I've read through it. I'm a little bit unclear about what you've contemplated for changes. And Anthony, you deal with a lot of other towns. What you see out there for capital plans as well.
Before we get on to Anthony, you do know that there's a mechanism to change, that you can put forward any change you wanted with a 2/3 vote. And that before this plan got twisted around to become a capital budget instead of a capital plan, that's exactly how it worked for years. And then it got loosened and changed. But we always had either a 5 or a 7-year plan, and it was always, if year 7 had something and it was all of a sudden rusting and it was breaking, then we took a 2/3 vote on town meeting and moved it from year 7 to year 1, and we had that right. There is a way of doing it. It's not set in stone when you set the plan up.
I think that's some of the things that we are contemplating, which is, if something, because I know that whether, right or wrong, the harbor master's boat showed up and had not been on a capital plan in X number of years. And that causes conflict with the planning concept. I understand, became an emergency, et cetera. However, what some of the things we're looking at is, if something, as we call it, jumps the shark, and immediately shows up in year 1 and has moved from year 4 to year 1, or has never been on the capital plan and shows up in year 1, that project would need a 2/3 vote at town meeting to remain on the capital plan. Separate from the funding, leave the funding over here, because those are the articles to fund. But we're looking at that. We're also looking at trying to write such that in the years 2 through 5, move them around. Just the flexibility has to be there to move things around. Change the numbers, because every year you find out that fire, I can remember what ambulances used to cost, and I mean, my eyes roll when I see, oh yeah, it's $1 million an ambulance, like, whew. And we were talking at one point, $300,000 seemed like a lot for an ambulance, and it's just the price tags are incredibly different. But you have something in year 4, by the time it gets to year 2, the scope may have changed. You may have found termites where you didn't know about them in year 4, now year 2 has termites. Costs really go up. So we're looking at years 2 through 5 to be very flexible.
No, we're not.
Well, most of the consensus of the committee is, but I'm saying that this is what is being considered. And year 1 becomes so it's basically years 1 to 5 are the capital plan, but year 1 is the capital budget, but then goes into articles for funding.
Unless it's an emergency, I can speak for myself, I would be hostile to something showing up in year 1 that had not been there ever.
Two-thirds
Street-
vote.
that's
May
not-
I-
that's
may
not
I weigh
planning
in on this,
anymore. If
please?
it's not an emergency and it just shows up.
Yep, and I think that then becomes, in order to convince town meeting that it really is an emergency and it's needed to be done, that becomes the proponents' thing. This is why we need to do this.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Don referred to the capital plan as it was operated for many, many years. 5-year plan, estimates were the money. They were not ever voted as, this is the amount of money we're going to see it each year, because you couldn't know in the out years. The flexibility that's built into the plan, if you take care of year 1 at town meeting, you fund all of those projects in an article. The original process was that 2 and 5 moved up to 1 through 4, and the only thing you really generally looked at was adding a year 5. Unless there was something unforeseen in the middle of the plan that you wanted to move. Then you asked town meeting for a 2/3 vote in order to move it, or a 2/3 vote in order to add it. That way you have that planning document that the townspeople can see that you're trying to keep that tax rate level, which with the water is another discussion
That's sewer,
altogether.
you mean?
The wastewater.
Sorry?
Anyway, yeah. So it was never designed originally and never should have turned into a whole new plan every year. It just wasn't. The plan was supposed to be somewhat set in stone, but flexible enough so that if the town meeting saw the virtue of moving something, and as Don said, it's happened. We have moved items within the plan, and it was never, ever, ever voted down. So that's where I would disagree with you, is the flexibility in the 2 through 5 years, because it was not set in stone quite, but it needed a process to be flexible.
I think that's what the overall issue in our
Okay.
committee is going to be, is whether or not changing something from year 4 to year 3 requires a 2/3 vote.
We had that discussion
And we
last
have
week.
had that, and we did have that discussion last week,
Right,
and we
came to
agreed on
consensus
something.
that, yeah.
Yes.
So
And
we
that's-
did come to consensus on that. You may be the protest nickel,
I may be.
Yes, you were.
but
But the bottom line is, the capital plan, there's belief there's a capital plan, where the discussion comes down to, and we've got input from the committee.
So much to say.
And then there'll be public comment later, is that the 2/3 should remain. If something gets into year 1 that wasn't in year 1, if it was year 2 became year 1, if there was a change to that, it would still be a 2/3 vote at town meeting to make any change to that. Flexibility would be in years 2 through 5. And again, you can't do estimates. What's gonna happen in 5 years from now, God only knows.
John,
I'd like to weigh in also on my thoughts. These are my thoughts on the capital plan, the capital budget. And I've sat on both. I've sat on the capital outlay committee and on the chair of the finance committee at one time. And I was frustrated. One of my things I was frustrated in was the capital budget, capital plan. because of the different variations over the years. Was on it for over 6 years, so there's different variations. One year it was this, next year it was this. But I agree with, I think it was Don, I think the consensus of our group last week, we talked about this. I've talked about it with Martha, I've talked about it with other members of the Finance Committee and Capital Outlay Committee. And my thoughts are on years 2 through 5, it is what it says it is. It's a plan. It is subject to change. And I have no problem with 2 through 5 changing over the years and moving around from 2 to 3 to 4, wherever they want to move around at the recommendations of the Capital Outlay Committee. I think those numbers should be updated, which I've been assured that they would be updated. There's inflation, there's construction costs, that no one can project out what 5 years something's going to cost. But year 1 is the one I really want to stick to, because that's the capital budget. That's what's in the warrant article, is what the citizens are going to vote on for funding for that year. This year was a strange year because we had a number, it wasn't just one vote on the town warrant in year 1, as never been appearing in year 1 through 5 before. There was close to 5 and maybe 6 articles. You know, we had 2 boats. We had a pickup truck. We had a emergency dredging of Saquatucket Harbor at the ramp area on there. And we also had, form-based design on there as year 1. And those numbers, I think, if anyone can correct me from somewhere, but 1.2 million, 1.5 million, somewhere in between, those 5 articles, or 6, was not on any plan. And that's a shock to me, as if I was planning as a Capital Outlay or Finance Committee, to see something appear and not be there before. And I agree that's where the 2/3 vote should show up. That Martha has done an excellent job of explaining all the capital items, the best I've ever seen. And I don't think they would have any problem standing up and saying, year 1, these are the articles that have never been on the plan before, and this is why they've changed. There was an emergency, and you have to define what an emergency is, but there's an emergency. And as folks have said here, that my experience, that no one in town meeting has ever refused a 2/3 vote on articles. So that's where I would like to see the 2/3 vote implemented, is on the capital budget, not the plan. And the plan moves around because the idea of trying to keep it level funding is a tough road. Because this year, I didn't object to it, but I was surprised that there's no sewer in there. So we have nothing in there now for the next 5 years. Maybe that'll change next year, because it's still out there. We can close our eyes and pretend it's not going to happen, but the sewer has to continue. And the biggest bogey in all that is the co-location of a treatment plant, whether that's with Dennis or somebody else. But that's a huge, huge number, and that's not even projected out in the next 5 years. And I know folks are working on that. So that's just my thoughts on the capital plan, the capital budget, that if it's in year 1, has never been on the capital plan, an explanation by the Capital Outlay Committee and a 2/3 vote should be taken. That's just my opinion
On that project.
on that project.
And that, I do agree with it. By the way, there was never language that had you had a finding for an emergency. It was that you could change it with a 2/3 vote.
Yeah.
What that rationale was what that rationale was. It might actually be to replace something that isn't ready, so that you want to bring in. But I got to point out one thing that, without pissing everybody off, but I was going to say it anyway.
Go for it, Don.
At the end of the day, at the end of the trail, it's not the Capital Outlay Committee's capital plan. It is not the town administrator's capital plan. It's the select board's capital plan that goes to town meeting. So we need to be comfortable that this isn't just chaos every year, that somehow there's some structure to it. I'd go for the 1, but I really think that forget the money. Everybody's got to take that out of their heads. The money has absolutely nothing to do with the priority listing, except to the point that we might not be able to afford it this year, or it's not ready this year. But the money is not the issue. The money always gets revised, always. So that what's presented is that based on the best available information. It's a question of what you do. I would expect, because I help participate in writing the charter change for the current charter. And frankly, the anticipation was that you get the town meeting this year, that's last year's number 2 year. It graduates, it becomes number 1. And I can tell you for a fact, over the last 8 or 9 years, that ain't what's been happening. Things just show up, and that's chaotic. I mean, it doesn't give much faith in the town government either, that, how come that wasn't even here? Forget about year 2. It wasn't on year 3, 4, or 5 either.
Other comments? No, we're not taking public
We are at the end of the meeting.
at the end of the meeting, but
You can
not
slash
now.
my tires on the way out if you'd like.
Slash his tires on the
That would
way
be a
out.
capital outlay.
And that would be a capital outlay issue.
I'll have comments for later.
Don.
Jeff?
Thank you. And I'll just go on record by stating that, well, first let me ask, the consensus is flexibility with 2 through 5.
Yes.
I support that wholeheartedly.
And two-thirds, you also agree that
I sup-
two-thirds vote
Yes.
can be changed to year 1?
Correct,
Something that just shows up.
correct.
And for the defense, I'm going to say I don't support that unless it requires a 2/3 vote to wiggle it around. I don't care about moving around 2 through 5, but it still should take a 2/3 vote, and it's not going to be a problem.
Isn't that what I just said?
No,
No.
because 2 through 5 doesn't require a 2/3 vote.
No, I-
It's something that shows up in year 1.
I thought that's what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's saying something different. I
I'm
think Don
saying
is
that you
saying,
want to move something from 5 to 4.
You want 2/3 vote
Want 2/3 vote
inside
for that,
the
too.
whole plan?
Yep.
Okay,
So here's a
understood.
question. When does year 2 become year 1? Before or after you've jiggled it around?
I think at the end of town meeting, it becomes year 1.
Well, we need to make that clear if we're going to do it that way.
I think we need to put the
But that's
words in
right.
as to how this works.
That's what I'm saying. Year 2 should graduate to year 1.
No, I don't think there's any disagreement on that, but if you've got something in year 4, we had that situation this year. Something was planned on for the community center, a new roof. That was pulled out of the plan, it was moved back. We didn't do a 2/3 vote on it, it was just done. And this is why back codifying these things and doing the job, and if it requires a 2/3 vote, we take the 2/3 vote. Year 4 and 5 changes, do we really need to have a 2/3 vote on that, on the capital plan? I don't think so. But once we hit town meeting and it's over, year 2 now becomes year 1's budget.
And the question I have is, so something's gone, it's winding its little way through 5432, now appears in year 1. The project is whatever it is, whatever it's defined as. But it is determined that it is not ready for prime time. It is not ready to go forward. It should be moved back to, I'll pick a year, it should go back to year 2 or 3, because it's not ready. Does that take a 2/3 vote to move it out of year 1
If you're going
back
to
to
do
2 or
it,
3? I would say no.
if you're going to do it that way, it should only be if you're going to add something to year 1.
I think it's only if you add something. I just want to clarify.
Yep.
Adding something to year 1 that hasn't been on the plan or hasn't made its progression.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bludgeon anybody
No,
at
no.
a town meeting, and that's an excellent point, because at the bottom of that would be a presupposition that you're stuck with this, even if you can't pay for it and it's not urgent.
Yep. Or it's not ready, and because I know that there's been, like the library has had, it's been on the capital plan for some time to redo the entryway. And the trustees and the library are not ready, so it keeps getting moved another year out, another year out. They think they'll be ready, when it is planned for now, whatever is year 2 or 3 or whatever.
And that happened in the beginning, in the rebuild in the early 2000s. That's
Sure,
exactly what happened. It
absolutely.
wasn't ready, and it just got
Just
pushed
move it
back.
over. So I don't think that should take a 2/3 vote, because you're pulling it out of year 1. It's adding something to year 1. Is that agreement? Cool.
I would agree, but I get back to, it's still the select board's capital plan.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I just wanted to add a comment. This is a little different because actually I haven't talked to the committee about this capital. We haven't had a discussion or sent a memo or anything. But sort of, I guess, to the group, this capital planning language in the charter is pretty unique or rare to Harwich. In most communities, the capital plan is not something that gets voted on by the town meeting. It's something that is maintained by the administration, and submitted to the town meeting sort of for their information. And I just want to walk through that a little bit. So the capital plan or the capital process consists of three main parts, which you've touched on in this discussion in various ways. So there are the capital assets of the town that presumably someone is looking at and aware of the state that they're in and is saying, I think this will need X, Y, or Z repair or construction or whatever at some point in time in the future. And they're doing that, sort of the industry standard, for lack of a better term, is in these 5-year intervals that you've currently got in your charter. There are existing projects or there are existing projects or projects that are about to start, which would be, well, actually, there are existing projects. So there might be an existing capital project going on. And then there are, and usually some towns can self-fund, but usually there's payment on the bond or whatever instrument was used to fund the capital expenditure. Starting a capital project would be a budgetary item. So the town meeting would be voting on, we were gonna issue a bond, or we're gonna take XYZ dollars out of our general fund to fund this project starting here that we had anticipated in this time period. So in most communities, the capital plan is the administration informing the community, here's the things that we, anticipate that the community will need to fund, fix, or build within this next year time period, and it's informative. And then at some point, they will actually bring a budgetary item to the town meeting and say, okay, we've been telling you for X, Y, Z years, we actually need to move forward, and the town can say, yes, we will, or we won't do that. And then when they decide to do that, in most community circumstances, they're then saying, we are now agreeing to pay over 10 to 20 years the debt service on that item. So, not to say that you can't keep it the way you are, I'm just saying that that's...
I don't think you understand how we're doing it, because in all due respect, we do them contemporaneously. The enabling vote for the budget for the capital items is on the same town meeting, a different article.
Correct, no,
We vote on the capital plan, and what effectuates the expenditure comes later in an article where we either specify it's coming from free cash or borrowing, and they do get voted on by the townspeople to actually fund them. So
No.
we're not talking about,
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, most communities don't have the town meeting actually vote on the capital plan. They will always vote on capital projects or those expenditures. The capital plan is an informative device to let the community know whether those projects move forward, that this is what we think we'll need over that time period. So I'm just pointing out that that's a unique feature of your form of government currently.
So
See
we
how
had a
far ahead
long-
we are
yeah,
and everyone else?
So we had a long,
We're behind.
I had a long conversation with the Charter Commission last week about exactly what you said, because I've never worked in a community that voted the capital plan as well. And I think at the end of the day, I brought that up, we had a limited conversation about that, but Harwich loves doing it this way.
No,
So
I'm just
I
pointing out
think
that it's
changing it, everyone's head would explode, so I think that's the reality.
We're special.
Yeah, we're
We're
special,
special.
we're
Boy,
special.
are we special.
But I brought that up, that,
Yeah.
this is a very Harwich unique thing.
yeah, just as an overall warning, it has never been an impressive argument to us that nobody does it the way Harwich does.
I tried.
And we understand that, and we understand that Harwich wants, the committee, the residents have indicated that they want to vote on a capital plan. I think what Anthony is saying is, we're unique in that aspect, that most of the communities don't vote a capital plan. Everybody votes spending the money. But it's just another way to look at it.
This horse is dead, dismount.
All right, this horse is dead, dismount, so I think we're good. Any other comments on capital plan? From your group, okay? Good. I think the other one that we had was this whole concept of a compliance.
I was going to ask for that one. Can you, Pete's not here, and I'm going to ask on his behalf. Can you give a little elaboration about how you see this working?
Sure. We would have, we are thinking an elected commission, and that if someone, for both bylaws and charter, and that if someone in the community decides that somebody is not following a charter or bylaw, they would put together a little letter to this this compliance commission, stating the facts, section 1, 2, 3, bylaw this, that, and have 10 signatures, almost like a citizen's petition. Come to the commission, the compliance commission, for review to determine, in their opinion, whether or not there has been an issue. Probably seeking at that time counsel, if need be, to make sure that we're interpreting things correctly. If in the commission's opinion, there is no violation, then that information then gets conveyed back to the petitioner. If there is, then there is a hearing, everybody talks about it, and the gist of it is to try to educate. It's not looking as being punitive, you're gonna get behind the woodshed, get 6 whacks. It is the educational part that says the charter said this, you are not in violation of that, do you understand why? Let's all understand and educate. That's kind of the way it would run. Town clerk would get involved, but that's getting into the weeds.
Can I add
So
on?
it is not it is not a compliance commission going to meetings, going to the finance committee, going to the golf committee, watching them and saying, aha, we got them on section 1, 2, 3. It has to come from the community to the group.
Can I just say something, because I know what Sandy would likely say, but I want to frame something here. Don't,
Can I just say what I'd likely say?
Why don't you let her say what she'd like to say?
I've actually been known to speak for myself on
No,
occasion.
I get that, but what I'm saying is
I
something,
think
No, he's
you
not gonna
kinda
let you.
scribble your head. Sandy?
Just to round this out, the concept at this point is that it would be a combined bylaw charter review, which we now have as a committee, and compliance acting only on citizens' complaints and not running around town behaving like the charter police. And also would be the one to give an opinion if there was a dispute, I don't know, between the select board and some other committee about how to interpret the charter, that instead of running to a lawyer to get 6 different opinions and pay big money for it, that this group would be the one who would say, no, this is what it is, and that opinion would be binding. So it's sort of on a multi-purpose, because if you have the people who are working with the charter and reviewing the charter all the time and are conversant with the charter, then they would be, I think, in the best position to act on complaints and also interpretations.
and that is what I expected. And I'm just going to say that, don't shoot the messenger, because I don't necessarily agree with Pete, but I can tell you on his behalf what's in the back of his mind. So perhaps that could be addressed. We went through the override in 2005. He got elected. And then there was this financial review board that got appointed. There were about 5 people who had corporate experience and everything.
Right.
And Pete railed against that. He goes, I'll tell you what the Financial Control Board is. It's the voters. If we're not doing the job, we get voted out and somebody else gets voted in. And I'm just pointing out that that's where he's coming from in terms of compliance. I, on the other hand, have seen a vast number of instances where, geez, I wish we had a compliance board, because depending on what, and I'm just going to lay it out, depending on what legal counsel we have and how cozy the town administrator is with them, we get delivered an opinion that's coincident with what you want, not necessarily what's right. And the compliance board, I happen to like the idea, because there are things that, I mean, you don't want a lawyer for that. They're involved with giving you legal advice, not policy advice. So if something is wrong and you don't want to do it that way, and some selectman is putting his thumb or her thumb on a scale behind the scenes, there should be a mechanism for us to have some sort of recourse here. I don't know what it looks like on the ground. That's why I asked you what you thought it looked like to work. But I do see a need for that, because it's not as if, I think I mentioned this to you a number of years ago, the whole concept of the 5 part-time select board members, it was something like lifted out of Platonic literature about you're going to have philosopher kings who retired in Harwich, who only want the best for the town, and they are all going to be the town fathers and mothers, and they are going to do whatever's in your best interest, and that's great. But in reality, not everybody who's ever gotten on the board has pure interests. I've seen people try to finagle stuff. There is no recourse. Right now, just to point out and put it out there, it takes about 4 times as many voters on a recall petition as it does to vote somebody in. Just as a practical matter, you are never going to see the public address this except every 3 years, ever. Because, as I said, it takes about 1,100 votes to get into office. It takes about, what, 4,000 votes
Not quite.
on a petition?
Not quite.
Yeah, but the point is that it's a massive number bigger than it was to put you there. So,
To go out, you have to, for a recall position, you have to go.
and I
out
don't want to
get
go through that
X percent and
nonsense.
up. It's a huge chunk. That's a serious, when you're getting to that point, somebody really is pretty egregious.
You can lower
On
the
an
pressure
elected
by
basis.
having an organization structure like is being proposed, and I don't see that it's going to meet every week to see how they can do a gotcha on the select
Absolutely
board.
No.
And to make the to make a complaint, it needs a number of signatures, not one.
Okay.
It needs a number of signatures, and frankly, this compliance committee review should be people who are not serving on other committees in town. You know, it should be like a finance committee, should be like a select board outside of liaisons and county appointments, but that's all they do. And we want to make it difficult to file a complaint, and the bottom line is education. You know, the whole idea, clarity, guidelines of the charter, and do the job. And if someone's not doing the job, whether it be a town administrator, town manager, member of select board, or committee chair, whatever, you know, who are they accountable to? Do the job. If you're not doing the job, you need to say, hey, wake up, you gotta get the job done.
And I agree with you. I was just presenting the alternative
And
view.
you know what, but not everyone's gonna agree on the whole thing. That's the nice part about a very diverse charter commission. We don't all think the same, but we've come to
Any
really
other members have
consensus on
strong
almost
feelings
everything.
on-
Okay. I've thought a lot about this. And I'll say that the majority of the time that I've been on the select board now, just 3 years, most of the issues that have come up are typically based on interpretation, as you, I think, alluded to earlier, right? I think with the work you all are doing, by cleaning up the charter's language, there will be a lot less room for interpretive issues. That being said, I do want to ask a couple of questions before I keep going here. Sandy, you mentioned that it's not just educational, but it's also directive. Is that what I heard?
Directive? I
Well, you
don't
said
know
it's
what-
not, I think the way you put it was, if there's a breach, the Charter Compliance Commission can correct, and that will be binding.
I think you've mushed two different
Okay.
statements in
So,
together. If
please.
there's a question of interpretation, if two boards or several select board members,
It's all right.
Good job, Sandy.
It's okay, it's okay.
telling you, it's a struggle.
I hear you.
Are in disagreement or are unclear about what the charter means, that this board would, the compliance board, or whatever we end up calling it, would be the one to interpret it, and that interpretation would be binding.
Okay, thank you for
If-
that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'll just throw this in there now, and I'll bring it up again. But typically, if two boards are involved in something that's significant, legal has been opining on the positions of the boards.
It has.
So now, you're gonna have, at least what I'm hearing is, the intention would be to have 5 elected people insert themselves in between.
Not insert themselves, be asked for their opinion.
Okay, but then their opinion would be binding over councils? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, council has been known to give several different opinions on the same subject. so
I don't disagree with that.
The objective would be to minimize the use of council over such things.
Okay, I'll get back to that.
Can I just jump real quick on that, real quick?
Sure.
If that's a scenario, that's good for further discussion, then should some of the decisions of the charter compliance be reviewed?
Well, let me get to that, because that's in here.
Also,
Oh,
the Charter Commission, Charter Review, the Compliance Commission wouldn't be inserting themselves unless 10 people walked in the door with a piece of paper.
Well, if it became something between boards and committees, or the two members of the select board were in conflict about
They could
what
come to
shall
us.
means.
What shall means.
so let's bring shall up right now,
We've
shall we?
had- We've had shall interpreted as.
Let me,
Are you requiring that, or are you just
I'm-
suggesting it?
And I'm not trying to be somebody who's stirring the pot here. But let's say, as it sits right now, that we had this Charter Compliance Committee involved in the town of Harwich. Your commission just lost a member.
Yes?
It states, if a member dies, resigns, or ceases to be registered, dies, resigns, or ceases a register vote, if a vacancy occurs, it shall be filled by the election of any registered voter.
What's the next sentence say?
The next sentence, and this is my point.
Right.
Let me just get through it.
Thank you.
The commission may continue to act notwithstanding the existence of said member. Now, and I'll start by saying, I agree wholeheartedly that you should not put somebody on there. So I'm in agreement with the consensus your commission took. My interpretation of this is, while you're in the process of filling said vacancy, you can still meet and do business.
The long process.
Okay, so, but there was language stated at your meeting which flies in the face of exactly what you are all trying to clean up, which is the use of the word shall. One member said, I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. We're not going to take this to council for an opinion. Now I'm sitting watching this and I'm thinking to myself, this is the very group who is cleaning up our charter, and shall has been a part of every single meeting that you all have had, all 45 of them. And you're doing what you say you shouldn't be. So I just want to make it clear that the experts, well, let me add one more thing. There was also a statement made that the select board we are elected, and the select board will not tell us how to do our business. End of story. Agreed. So I'm looking at a Charter Compliance Commission sitting in judgment of decisions that a select, and I have more questions, but I'm going off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I see this commission, this Charter Compliance Commission sitting in judgment without all the necessary information that the body has to make these decisions that they're making. It could be executive session information. It could be legal information that can't come public. So you have somebody out in the public saying, that's not what they're supposed to be doing. They get 10 people to file a petition, and now so-and-so's got to sit before a hearing if so deemed. Let me just continue, and then I'll yield a little bit here, but I shall. Thank you. Some questions for clarity. I'll ask the consultant, Anthony, if I could. How many towns in the Commonwealth have a compliance commission?
There are two, excuse me, Bourne and Provincetown.
Those are the only two out of 300 and, how many? 51, okay. Who does this compliance commission have, I'm going to use the word jurisdiction, whether it's the right word or the wrong word, but is it everybody? Is it town administrator, select board, finance committee, human resource director? Does it encompass everybody underneath and including the select board.
I would defer to the.
No, I'm not asking you this one. I'm asking the commission who they feel is fair game, I guess.
Can't,
What's that?
it can't.
That, I'm
It's Mass
just,
general law that defines who's responsible, and
that's why I'm asking.
linearly, the staff is, we own the volunteers, the town administrator owns the staff.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to what
But hold,
I was asked.
okay.
How would this work?
Mhm.
Somebody puts in an issue, a topic, 10 signatures. The Compliance Commission reviews it.
Mhm.
Is it in their jurisdiction to even make a comment? You know, the town administrator reports to the select board. I think we would then have to say, select board, this is an issue, deal with it.
Mhm.
If it's an employee, we know that there are all kinds of rules and regulations in union contracts. The Compliance Commission would sit there and say, this is all in union contracts. If you have an issue, you have to do here. There's a whole realm of things that you have to do. So just because somebody decides that Jeff Handler is not doing something and it was an executive session, again, we would probably leave, the Compliance Commission would probably leave executive session alone because that's the whole definition of executive session.
So who is this being created for?
The town.
The town,
And
the
can I jump?
townspeople.
What
You made a
positions
comment.
it
What
means.
positions inside our org chart is this being created for specifically and precisely? If it's not the employees because they're union-based, and no union is going to allow them to come and sit for a hearing.
Absolutely.
No town administrator in a contract year or even in an out year, their attorney is not going to let them come and sit for in a hearing with the Charter Compliance Committee. So who specifically are we talking about here?
Can I?
Go ahead.
Okay, and going through, there are two, Bourne and Provincetown. Be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of Provincetowns. They-
I've looked at both.
Right, and when you look at Bourne's, it is looking at specifically town administrator, select board, school committee, finance committee. Okay, there are appointed boards, and that's where, again, you have your responsibilities. But I want to go back to your point of the charter commission. We shall appoint a new member. That'd be a great complaint to go to a charter commission, to look and say is exactly what you said, in your words were, I perfectly understand why you're doing what you're doing. If it goes to a complaint, and it takes 45 to 60 days to get to a hearing, and the charter commission says, yep, we agree, yeah, you should be bringing someone else on. We understand why you're not, because you don't want to redo a year's worth of work for someone who's gonna serve for 5 months. That's how a complaint should work. If it has credence, it should be listened to, and the bottom line from it is, we believe there might have been a violation of the charter. Do your job, please don't do it again.
But you'd do it again if you had the opportunity to do it again and it made sense. So I don't understand
That's whole
the
point.
argument.
That's what you have a charter commission there, or compliance, to say, should you have complied with it or not? Is there a reason you shouldn't? Is there a reason why the town administrator acted as he did? Or a select board member, or a finance committee member, or a school committee member acted as they did? Is there a breach of the charter that's pretty bad, or is it not a big deal? That's what those 5 people, sort of the Supreme Court, who are interpreting that Constitution
Yeah.
or our charter, who are gonna say, we don't think it rises to the level
Okay.
of an issue.
So can I get a clear, specific example of something that happened in the past, other than the example I just gave, that you could see becoming part of the process of making its way through to the Charter Compliance Commission?
You wanna start through page 1 of the charter and
I,
go forward?
I just want one example of, in the past, what would have triggered this, potentially.
Well, in 2016, when I brought an article to town meeting floor on this for the first time, I had, after it went down at the time, because people's hair got on fire, because I used the word, unfortunately, enforcement, which was not a good word to use. But after that, I sat down and wrote, I think it was a 4 or 5 page letter to the select board at the time, outlining the areas of concern. There were many. It was detailed. If you'd ever like to see it, I would be happy to share it with you.
No, what was the
Because they never
offense?
even, 5 years ago, to 8 years ago. I don't remember specifically all of them, but I'm very happy to share.
I'm just trying to validate the effort you're all putting
How
forward.
about if I use this example? You had a select board member who resigned in the middle of the term. And there were people that talked to me specifically and said, because the select board at the time took a while to call the special election, and the person that was then elected, Pete Pekarsky, within 2 weeks was running again for the full seat, for the 3-year seat. And there were people who were talking to me and saying, this must be a charter violation, charter violation. Okay, so that would be an example. Those people would say, charter violation, blah, 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 comes to the Compliance Commission. The Compliance Commission looks at it and said, well, one, looking at it, Mass General Law says you have X amount of time to call this special election, da-da-da. Select Board met that time frame, so it's not a violation. It's also not in our, it's also not in our charter that an election has to be called within 30 days. That's not in the charter. That would be a real live, fairly current example that I came up with. So we would tell the petitioner, it's not a charter violation, and Mass General Law gives them X amount of time to do such and thus to call a special election. And they did that. Everything's fine.
So I had a feeling you were going to go down this road.
Why?
Charter 312, Section 1, the Select Board 312, vacancies in the office of the Select Board shall be filled by special election in accordance with general law.
Yep.
KP Law's opinion, and this goes to Mr. Howell's point, right, is we get different opinions. The short answer, in my opinion, and don't forget, it was a petitioner that brought forward a citizen's petition to have an election, and then he subsequently realized it wasn't, and then he tried to withdraw it.
Yep,
But
he
it said,
could.
where a petition is signed by persons other than the primary petitioner, the petition may not be withdrawn. Nevertheless, whether to move forward with the petitioned election or a special election is policy decision for the Select Board. So I'm just trying to understand, we create this, we ask 5 people to be elected, we are trying to solve a problem that, even with the examples, are not found in violation. If what I'm hearing is it's a way for the public to get answers that they're not getting. Is that a way to put it?
That would be one possibility, that would be one outcome. A person who thinks there's a violation of the charter comes to the Compliance Commission, determines that it's not in violation of the charter, and here are the reasons why, and there's the educational process.
2 more questions. Who would oversee?
Does that
Yeah,
suffice?
it does, and that's kind of where the bottom of the funnel is with me here, but, so who oversees the Compliance Commission? If they render a decision, a verdict, or an educational component, and I feel that they didn't do it right, who do I go to?
You go to chapter, I think it's 8, which is recall,
Okay?
right? Isn't that chapter 8?
And that's my point, is all elected officials should be held to the standard of the voters,
Yes,
and that's a recall.
and that's a recall.
That's right. And this was a tongue-in-cheek, but I'm going to say it anyway, and then I'll yield. What if I just said no? I'm not going to go to the hearing. I took legal counsel's advice, and I'm not going to be...
Educated?
No, because I was educated. Legal gave me my directive. And if you think about it this way, too, if legal gives a directive to the Select Board, and there's 3 people sitting on the Select Board who vote yes to move in the direction of legal, that means, and there were 2 people who voted in opposition, then it went to the Charter Compliance Commission.
Upon a 10-person.
Upon a 10-person, right?
10-person issue.
Okay? And you've got 3 people saying, yes, let's bring it forward, and 2 people not. Now you've got a split vote to bring something forward. And I just don't,
In any situation, majority rules.
Right.
no, but you've
Once
got
a
2
board-
boards. I'm talking about 2 boards weighing in.
Different boards.
The select, forget it. Anyway, What,
Two points,
I
Jeff.
lost myself there, but it sounded good on paper.
Jeff,
But it is safe to say that I do not support this at all one bit. We have a system in place, and to Mr. Waystack's, do your job, it goes right down the hill, and if there's something that needs to be brought forward, it's done publicly right here with the select board, it's done publicly at committees and commissions and boards and all that other stuff. So safe to say I don't support this, and I think this could be the one that may turn all your efforts into.
We're trying not to go in that direction.
Understood. And I'll say this lastly. I want to support everything that you're putting forward. I don't want to say, when I'm asked by the public, what do you think? How should I vote? I like 8 of them, but I can't support that one. So please don't vote in favor.
And
So
actually,
that's,
and when this goes to a vote to the public, it is an all or nothing.
I understand that.
It's not being voted on. Here's your vote on chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
And to make it clear,
All in one.
that's exactly how I understand it, and I want to support 1 through 8, if there's 1 through 8. But if there's 2 that I can't support, I'm going to make it clear to the people who ask me, I can't support it. So, thank you.
Mark?
I'm gonna take as much time as Jeff did, if you don't mind.
I'm not going to speak again
And I'm gonna
tonight.
stand up and say it. No, anyways. It's an idea, but I think despite the fact that I mentioned earlier, we're closing in on $100 million budget, we still are a small town. You know, people here are very active. I just think it's a little bit of overreach. I think we have a good administrative team that can interpret things. They can speak to whatever transgression was there and kind of solve it. You know, even somebody who's a local attorney, Michael Ford, if it gets to reach an impasse, go to him. But as Jeff said, you have worked hard. I think this could work against getting approval for this, but
We're trying, again, Mark, we're trying not to talk in terms of what could cause it to go down, what could cause it to go up. We're staying away from that, so
Right.
please.
But I just think basically, it's overreach. I would let it go. I'm not in favor of it. Thank you.
Anita?
Well, I'm gonna probably not make some people happy, but I'm gonna also be not in favor of this. I think that people are gonna look at this as being too much of a police, too much of an overreach. I don't know, I've been part of the bylaw charter committee for over 20 years, and I think my opinion would be you'd still have to get some kind of legal counsel. So it's still going to involve legal counsel no matter what. So whether it comes from a compliance committee or whether it came from the select board, it's still going to come to a legal question, irregardless of the fact. So I applaud all your efforts. I really appreciate all the work that you've put forward into this, but I can't agree with this one thing.
Just to sum it up, I'm not changing my mind, I still support
Are you gonna be as long as Jeff?
No, I'm not, but I am gonna bring up some numbers. Alternatively, if you're not gonna do this, when the whole point about recall was, it seemed to be reasonable, like in 2006, actually, even before that, you had a town that had like 9,000 full-time residents. Actually, going back in the earlier 90s, it was 7,800, something like that. You couldn't get elected in Harwich unless you grabbed off 2,500 votes against the 8,000. We are now electing people with 1,000 votes out of 11,300 registered voters, which is a tall mountain to climb because the percentages applied against whatever that number is.
Yeah.
If it keeps climbing, there is a chasm that's been created between electing and removing that's insurmountable. And if you don't want to go into compliance, you really should be looking into why is it so damn difficult to get rid of somebody? It's easier to put them there than it is to take them out. It should never be that simple, because the whole point of government is some stability to represent people, and today's villain is tomorrow's hero sometimes in government. But I guess I'm really worried about the distance between the two widening. You really have no reasonable threat that anything you do at this level is ever going to cause you to have a problem until you get to an election.
And I think the issue that we look at, we have a charter, and I monitor your select board meetings a lot, and I've heard the charter come up over and over and over again. If we're spending a year and a half looking at charter, if you're living by the charter and the decisions you're making for this community, and there are no guidelines, there are no guardrails there, the two of you, by the way, congratulations, were just
It was
reelected.
massive.
Huge, overwhelming.
Landslide.
I could see that, it was just huge. But the fact is, you will both stand, if you wish, 3 years from now. And if something occurred that was a violation of the charter, recall's not gonna happen. And our good friend, the senator, always says, well, re-election, election will determine. That could be 3 years from now. And if there's been an error with the charter and the use of the charter made by, whether a town administrator, finance committee, a select board, you're waiting 3 years to re-elect or not re-elect that person. But in the meantime, we've not educated. We have a town council that has been up and down for years. We've had issues with, contrary opinions that were said, and we just brought them back in again. Yet, I heard meeting after meeting after meeting, the board was not happy with that town council. We just contracted them.
Not the whole board. Not the whole board.
And
So-
not,
so
and
board
not,
votes-
not at all the same lawyers.
But here's the point is that the voice of the select board was, they voted it. Whether it's a 4-1 or 3-2, that happened. They were contracted to come in again. Without guardrails for a charter, why have a charter? That is what we live by in this community. And an educational tool to say, hey, folks, you need to look at it. And by creating a compliance in a certain way that we need to have 25 people file a complaint, great, increase that. But if it comes to someone who says, that complaint really is not valid, we're not even gonna get to a hearing with it, then that should be done. But if there is an issue with the charter, it's an educational tool. And that's where the court of public opinion, that if there's a public hearing held saying, hey, you know what, folks, we need to do a better adherence to this charter. So I'm firmly in the part of really having some guidelines and some guardrails for this charter. Because I've spent a year with this wonderful commission working on this constitution of this community. And I hope people, and we need to do some work educating to see what the benefit of having some guardrails. You want to increase the number to 50 for a complaint? Great. It shouldn't be because I disagreed with Mr. Kelleher's vote last week. No. Is the board following? Is the town administrator? Is the finance committee following the guidelines of our charter?
Can I end on an inspirational, upbeat comment? When I served between 2000 and 2006, the word charter never crossed anybody's lips. The fact that you're talking about this in the way you are, and Jeff knows how many times have I brought charter up.
Thought that was your middle name.
Yeah, but the fact that
Those
that's
are
being
mine.
discussed and has been discussed more recently, probably for the last 5, 6, 7 years, is because we're making a renewed commitment to dust it off and actually look at it and take it seriously. So I'd like to give some props overall to the fact that we've come a long way, that the document that we originally had was, after some time, totally ignored. People just made up rules and did stuff. I at least would like to recognize that the charter is a point of reference. Now, how well it aligns with the actions that are going on, another story. But at least the word and the document are out there.
I would hope to God it's more than just a point of reference.
It is more than a point of reference. We do look at it a lot now, and the board discusses it all the time. But the point is, that still doesn't get you to, are they always right? and they always interpreting this correctly. So, again, that's where I'm at. The rest of my board obviously is not. So,
Well, I'll make it quick, I promise. I'm going to agree.
You just said you weren't going to speak again.
But I can't. You make such a great point, because the person that I look to most of the time for charter information is you. And I've done that for the 3 years I've been on the board. However, you and I find you, and then you'll alert me to them, and it becomes very frustrating that it's unclear. And there's always the ability to wildly interpret it however you choose for the situation that you're in. Back to my original point, it's going to be great to not have that frustration. I really look forward to all the cleanups that you're doing, and I followed along, and I know where you're going with it. And I think that's just going to make everything work just that much more efficiently and succinctly and honestly and transparent.
the bad news is that in actual practice, I've never seen a set of bylaws or a charter that was so perfect in its language.
course, of
That
course.
never had any interpretive problems.
Yeah, of course.
We're going to do the best we can to minimize
And
that.
you guys are doing a great job.
You're doing a great job,
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
This has been a good conversation. Is there anything else? I mean, you know, we had our topics that we wanted your input on, serious topics. But are there other things that you are looking at or would like us to look at or have an opinion on? So, you know, we've got a few minutes left. Everybody wants to go home.
I'm gonna bring up the one, it's not gonna fly, I'm still gonna bring it up.
Go ahead.
Because it was brought up before. I've been disturbed for the last 25 or 30 years that,
We know that.
not in that way. Not in that way. But I'm gonna be late for the ambulance pretty soon. The election process is kind of disjointed because it's 221, 221, 221. The only time that you actually get an honest appraisal of what's going on is the 1 year, where somebody, if they're pulling out papers, they got nowhere to hide. They can't say, I'm not running against Richard, I'm running for the town of Harwich. Every other 2 years, that's the nonsense you hear when you really, you understand that there's probably one person that they're really running against, but there's nobody, there's no way of addressing that. At one point, I had thought, and as we grow, I still think that this is not a bad idea. We have 4 voting precincts. The possibility of having a 5-member board where each precinct has its own representative and one is the overall generalist from the voted for at large from the town would eliminate that problem. If somebody wants to run against Don because they think he's not doing a good job, then I should put myself out there in that kind of peril. The fact that there are, I'm not talking about this year, I'm not talking about anybody who's even on this board, but I have through the years seen situations where I almost, it's been a joke, but it's actually true. At times, the town seems to have a fascination with electing one selectman for the entertainment value. And you can't, but the way.
Yes, man.
Aye.
But the problem is that you can't get to that because if 5 people run, 2 of them are going to win in that scenario, and it may not be the ones that anybody intended. City councils are all set up by districts. Most bigger towns are. I'm sure that there's going to come a time at some point where people are going to want to feel, especially with what's been going on with Pine Oaks, for instance, if people in a particular area of town feel like they want to be represented in some way, the 4+1 seems to be the easiest way of approaching it, and it's pretty clear that if I pull papers out and you're in precinct 2 already, and I pull papers for precinct 2, it's not that I'm running for Harwich, I'm running against you. It's an honest conversation. That has not been what's been happening. It's probably not gonna happen this year, I get it, but I would love to be able to have something where it was really an honest discussion instead of, I don't know how many of you people have heard it, but I'm running for the town of Harwich seems to be the narrative in general. It's like, I'm not running against anybody.
Understood, and we did actually discuss this. We discussed a couple of things, because I think it's chapter 1 sets up, we are a you know, part-time select board with a town administrator, an open town meeting. And we discussed representative town meeting, we discussed this, we discussed the going back to a full-time board, we discussed a variety of things and decided not to pursue any of them at this point.
And I will say that it was interesting you just brought that up, because he's not with us anymore, but it's a good object example. When there was a full-time set of select board members, 3, you could lose your actual livelihood if you weren't operating the way the public wanted you to. And in point of fact, Barry Hemian wound up losing his job because of streetlights. But he was exposed because he and only he was running, and that's how he lost.
That's the voting
But
process.
it's not nearly as assigned in terms of you having an obligation yourself. You can hide behind it being 2 people.
I also remember all the stories that I've heard about 3 full-time elected select board members. One would hit the restroom and the other 2 would pass something. So I've heard about those stories too.
With very fast motions.
Yes, with very fast motions.
Where have you landed with rotating chair, if I may?
We're going to we're going to put that out to the public at
Okay.
this point. The idea that somebody shouldn't be chair for more than 2 consecutive years. Because you're supposed to reorganize boards every year. And there's pros and cons to it, so we're going to.
And that's fine. I just want to drop in there that my experience also with the regulatory bodies is it takes some members a couple of years to be able to get to the point where they actually understand Mass General law and what they're supposed to be doing. As long as you don't wind up diluting this to the point where there's term limits on the committee itself, where you start dumping off people that actually know something.
And we actually did talk about term limits.
And I think that's a
Elected
horrible
and
idea.
appointed, and we decided not to go in that direction. So if anybody had been watching our meetings, we've had those
No, I know you have, but I
conversations.
just want to bring it up publicly here, that would be a horrible idea because it takes a long time for people to understand conservation or planning or health.
Anybody else? Anita?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dawn.
Anita?
Thank you. I just want to let you know that what I did was I printed them both out, both the charter that we have now and the charter that you're proposing, and I went page by page by page. And there's some things that I have found that, Linda, I'd love to be able to sit down and
Sure.
go over with you
Anytime.
at some point. And, but you guys did a great job, and I was looking back on 2006, when we redid this charter. I was part of that at that point in time. So I've been on this and a part of this for a long
We
time.
won't hold that against you.
Thank you, please don't, but, you know,
We can meet offline and we can go through whatever it is.
that's what
Right.
I'd like to, that's what I'd like
Because
to
I've
go over
gotten
with you.
comments that have come, which I need to share with the group. Somebody else who went through and had a whole bunch of
Just little tiny things, but I didn't want to take up anybody's time.
Some of the things we're trying to clean up are, you know, things that should be capitalized, because it'll be select board, finance committee.
Yeah,
You know, capitalizing the things that should be capitalized if it's a proper noun, trying to clean up some of the grammar.
right, in
Uh,
reference to
Things, nits and lice like that, which is
Right.
just to make it cleaner.
right, reference to a position that's not there.
Yeah.
So, and I've come across, anyway, we'll talk offline, but I really want to thank you guys all for the work that you've done. I know the painstaking time that you guys have put into this, and I really appreciate it a lot.
45
Thank you.
meetings, 45 meetings.
I've been there, I've done it.
200 hours. Yeah, it's been about 200 hours,
It's awesome.
It's a
not
lot of work,
including the work that people do outside of the committee.
I
right.
guess that the point needs to be made too, on top of all this, is in addition to thanking you, we're both equally elected. As
Yes,
sets of
correct.
us. It's not like one of them is supreme, so we appreciate the effort that went into all of this. February is kind of really depressing. They go out at 6 o'clock in the dark, in the cold, to come to meetings, and you should be applauded for the amount of effort you put in.
At this point, if no one has any other questions, we've got a few minutes left. Is there anybody from the public?
That
who'd like
sounds
to make any
ominous.
comments? We'd like to leave, we'd like to end at 8:30, because we've already been here for 2.5 hours, but Martha?
Martha Hoople. Martha Donovan, Chair of the Capital Outlay Committee. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has listened to me go on and on about capital. I know I've been passionate about it. My committee has been very passionate and vocal about it. As I say to my friends, when I run the world, it's going to be a nicer place. So in my world, I say that all the time. In my world, we would have an unencumbered capital plan. We wouldn't vote for the capital plan. We would just focus, and thank you, Anthony. I was dying to say that, and you said it just what I wanted to hear. We would just vote on the things that are important in the first year. And obviously, I'm not going to win this battle. But I do want to just say, looking forward, I think it's going to be, the reason I'm fighting so intensely to have sort of this unencumbered capital plan is, I think our financial situation is going to really challenge us in the future at some point on how we finance capital. I say this, I think, every time I get up. And so that flexibility, I believe, is going to be really important. I want to change how we talk in town about the capital plan. I want us to move forward from this and stop going backwards. So I feel that some of the language, I'm kind of lecturing and I'm sorry, but some of the language about, oh, the department heads are jumping over each other, it sounds adversarial. It sounds like, hey, we've got sharp elbows and I'm going to elbow you out. And I don't, and granted, that may have happened in the past, and I wasn't here to witness it. But I'd rather say that we're changing priorities, or projects are becoming more important or less important in the plan, and not talk about jumping over each other. I also think that we have to realistically understand how the capital plan gets developed. It's called a capital request. It is not a guarantee that a department head puts something on a plan in year 5 and it rolls forward to year 1. That just isn't how things work. And if you've ever had a boss, you know that. Like, so in the department head gets to, for the most part, decide what's important. And Jay may have some influence on that. But when all those projects come into his desk, it's his job to decide what's important, and it's the select board's jobs to say yay or nay. It's not the department heads running the capital plan, and the way we talk about it, and God love them, I love everything that they do, and I say that at all my meetings. I appreciate how diligent they are and how committed they are. But it's not their job to make those decisions. It's up to Jay to present them to the select board and the select board to approve them, and then it's up to the taxpayer to say yes or no. So I would, even though I'm not going to win this fight, I would like to see us more like other towns where we don't vote for the capital plan and we don't have a 2/3 vote on anything other than debt. And I would say, you know, to the harbor project this year, at least for the boat, it did get a 2/3 vote. So you should be comfortable knowing it did get a 2/3 vote.
On the funding.
On the funding. And I would finally, I want to make sure that people understand that, you know, to say that something has to go on the plan in year 5 and roll forward to year 1, that is not going to be an attractive recruiting tool for a department head to say, hey, I come to town, I have all these new ideas, I want to do something differently, but I got to wait 5 years in the plan to get what I need. So I just think we have to be really careful about how we talk about this and be more realistic to where we're headed, not where we've been. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Patrick? You have 7 minutes, Patrick.
Well, no, Mr. Nickerson was.
That's 4
He's
minutes
got
more
3
than
minutes.
I
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Patrick Otten. As critical as the charter is in defining how the town operates and where it's going and how things are handled, there's another plan that's in existence that I feel is just as critical. And my question to you, for my own edification, is how is the charter addressing the LCP?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It won't, it will not,
Nothing
it
to
can't.
do with, it doesn't.
Why not? Why isn't the
Not-
charter part of the commission for guiding where the town's going and how it works?
Because the
Because
charter,
The charter doesn't
is about-
address something, this is a roadmap. It is not an instruction of, now you stop at this gas station and now you go to that place. It's a roadmap. We have always viewed it as a roadmap and we've always implemented it, Patrick. The one in 2000 had numerous projects that were approved within that structure, as I've discussed with you. The remedy for that is a similar remedy to here. It's like, if that plan that's in existence right now doesn't conform to what the needs of the community are, accelerate the development of a new plan. But it's a guide, it's a roadmap, it is not an instruction manual.
You should, I mean, I kind of look at the comprehensive plans myself as almost a vision statement. This is where we would like to see the town go with generalities and specifics. I see it as a vision statement. That's not that's not the governance part. The charter is
Governance.
specifically for the governance of the community.
And shame on us if we don't follow the plan, because
Well,
I'm
that's
right.
the whole point. It
Well,
gets
that's a
developed
different
for
point.
us to follow,
I
but that's
think-
not these people.
Yeah, I think that's what was my point. Why can't you say, follow the LCP? But you're saying you can't tell people what to do, so. All right, that was just me.
Thank you. And Mr. Nickerson?
Hi, Bob Nickerson. Probably have a difference of opinion. I think town manager is very different from administrator, and I think we should have town manager. And one of the reasons is, it is getting more and more complicated to run a town. And we need to have someone that has powers that are more stringent or available that they don't have in the past. We have a great set of select board people, but they are, I hate to say this, average people. I'm an engineer. If I was a select board person, I know engineering. This person knows how to run things. So I would really encourage you to really go back and look very deeply into your updates and modifications and really consider what could be done to have this gentleman that we're so lucky to have, to be able to have the tool sets to run this town properly. Okay? So, and secondly, I think in your public meeting coming up, you're going to have to think really hard and carefully how you're going to present it. Because if it's presented like tonight, you're going to lose the public, in my opinion. Thank you.
What's your suggestion?
You're making it too complicated jumping around. I've looked through this 3 times. I've looked at what you have marked up, and I don't see any changes in the last 2 months. So for me, I'm having to go through the minutes to know what you're talking about. You need to bring it down something so you can go in and talk to somebody that hasn't been looking at this to really give them highlights of where you're going. And it's not just, I crossed out, administrator and put in, town manager. Whoopee-doo. Sorry.
We have, as a committee, not wanted to keep putting in, every time we change a line, here's draft 4, here's draft 5.
I want to see that.
And we are planning, at this point, when we get to the June 6th, the meeting in June, the public educational meeting, that we will then have a revised draft, which will be draft 2. And
Well, I
we'll
want
have
to see
stuff
draft
cleaned
2
up.
before June. I don't want to walk
Before
into that
June.
meeting and see, oh, here's draft 2. I want to see it now.
We
And
will
I'm
get
probably
there.
not the only one that wants to see it now.
Well, I know that I'm the one doing it, so I'll be doing it. But we've got all kinds of notes, so draft 2 will get done shortly,
Okay?
and it'll be presented to the public, and they'll be able to talk about it. But you're right, we've changed some things here and there, because we had a draft 1, and then we went through that soup to nuts. I mean, the committee has
But every
gone
time you
through-
go in there and say, download it, it's the same download
Yep.
every time, so it looks like you're not doing anything if you're not keeping up with it. So I really would expect it every time, oh, today we talked about this section updated, put that on your note, then I put it online, and I can go look at section 2.8.3 or whatever it is, and I'm not seeing that, so now I download it, it's like, same old, same old.
Well, just a reminder, we're 9 volunteers,
Oh, should
I-
we say
8 volunteers,
Yeah,
Well, now you're 7 volunteers, but yeah, go ahead.
8.
Okay, anyway,
The chair has done a great job of updating, and I think it is incumbent upon anyone who comes to our public meeting to be aware to look at either our minutes, to watch some of our meetings. We're encouraging people to come every week.
I know.
And you're one who has, and you are watching. But we will have a draft out before that meeting.
Okay.
And I hope to God they do read it, and they see what some of those differences are.
Right, oh, they
It'll
should.
make it a good, robust meeting to have.
Just as Anita said, I mean, I think that's what I've been doing, to see what are the differences, what's the improvements? And then they come to that meeting, is there something I could offer? I don't know.
May I?
Thank you.
What Bob's initial comment was,
I'm
though,
going to ask Bob a question.
that I have heretofore not said that there's a tipping point where I would not support this. That is the tipping point. I'm an avowed populist. As far as I'm concerned, things that pull us further away from accountability from the public are not necessarily good. In the wrong hands, a town manager could easily slide into an autocratic situation. I really believe it's important to have an elected component sharing responsibility. It's not about, we can't trust those guys. If that's the case, we just hire bureaucratic experts for everything and we wouldn't have elections.
I'm a little confused where you're going on
He
this,
wanted the
Don.
town manager and
Oh, got
and
it.
it to be strong and accountable. That's the person. Jay said something about what I've said, which is what I've said to every single town administrator I have ever met. You're not working for us, you're working for those people on the other side of the window. Without elections, though, there's no way for that to be actually impressed. If a manager gets to the point of running, I've seen towns that went from the 1947 good government movement, pull away and become mayoralty systems because they were so disgusted with the outcomes of a strong town manager. The tipping point for me is, where do we have that shared responsibility where there's some input from the public where they feel like they've got some voice somehow? If it just gets to a point of a super strong town manager where they appoint the committee members, where everything happens, they're almost immune from anything.
Got it, okay.
I have a question for Bob, and that is, if you have opinions about what the town manager / administrator, town manager should be doing that he's not or she is not able to do under this charter, could you share that with us?
Sure, I can look at that in more detail, but
Yeah, I'd like,
I just think that we need to look at that seriously.
well, it would be helpful to know what you're thinking we should be looking at specifically.
Right, having the global comment,
It's not helpful.
it's not helpful. It's helpful for a conversation, but if you have some very specific things that we should be considering, our email, the Charter Commission emails on all of our agendas, it's right here, and just shoot it to us, and I'll get it. Anything else?
We could adjourn our respective meetings.
Motion to adjourn,
So
Madam
moved.
Chair?
Wait, don't we have minutes?
Move.
Yes.
Seconded?
Can
We have to pull our minutes.
Okay.
Motion to
Moved
approve
and
the
seconded.
minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Any
we're adjourned.
conversation on the minutes of May 14th?
Nope.
Yeah. All approved?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.